I love the purity of mentalism. I also love the challenge, because unlike a magic trick performed by an obvious magician, with a mentalist effect, there really is no place to hide. It's a paranormal situation pared down to its most minute elements. It really does come down to the presentation. This time, we're going to try something for Francis. That's right, Francis, right there. That spectator. Now, Francis is your typical spectator, sort of doubtful at first, but catching on fast, having a lot of fun with the show. Let's try this. I'm going to try to predict the future here. I can hand out the cards. The cards can be shuffled. The cards can be examined, of course. We'll take a playing card. I think this one right here. And I'm going to write my prediction of the card that you are going to freely select. I'm going to write a prediction right here. That one. I'm pretty sure. I think I know the card. We'll see. I'm going to leave my prediction in my pocket. Actually, it might be more fair if I left it on right here on the couch. That way we can keep an eye on it. That's my prediction. We'll see how this goes. Let's try this now. Francis, I'm going to go through the cards. I want you to say the word stop anytime you want. I riffle through. Francis says stop. I say fine. We'll push the card forward. The card you stopped at, the 3 of diamonds. And notice, the card I predicted would be a red card. Now, I understand if you're not particularly impressed. I mean, that's a 50-50 odds, right? But it's interesting, Francis, that you stopped at this one card out of every card in the pack, because we've never met before. We met how many? Like 2 minutes ago. And yet, last night, just before I went to sleep, I wrote someone's name on the bottom of one card in the entire pack. Your name, Francis. Get a card, any card with a lot of white on the face, and write a red card. An exclamation, underline the red, whatever works for you, a red card. It's a black card in this case, but that doesn't matter. And have the card in your right pants pocket, okay? The nice thing about this is it's extremely practical. Now at any time, you can go up to a group of people, whether you're working cocktail or restaurant or in a bar or a private setting, whatever works. And you can, as long as you have someone's name, you can make their name appear on a playing card under the most natural of circumstances. For starters, they shuffle the pack. That's all great. Cut a red card, and you can go through openly, say I'm going to write a prediction on a card, and just cut a red card, ideally one again with a fair bit of white on it. Cut a red card to the face of the pack. Now, by now, since it's not your first effect, it's maybe your second, third, fourth, whatever, you've got somebody's name. Let's say the name is Martin. Say, I'm going to try something for you, and I'm going to write a prediction on a card. Now, while you're saying you're going to write a prediction, actually all you do is write the word Martin on the card, near the bottom. Near the bottom of the card, you write the person's name. Fine. Cap the marker, blow on it. Now pretend to take the card, and what you're going to do is a necktie second deal. Very simple. Simply pulling back or pushing the card down a little bit as the thumb comes over. You take the card beneath it, you blow. It's the next card beneath it. That's not a problem. You start to put it in your pocket. This is what makes this method so practical. Start to put it in your pocket and say, actually, I'm going to leave my prediction on the table. And of course, all I've done is left the indifferent card in my pocket and taken out the red card. Take that out, put it on the table. Someone can put their hand on it, whatever you want. Okay? Now, lower the cards down, and so they're resting in the dealing position. And you want to make sure Martin, the name Martin, is at the back end of the deck, not the front end, but the back end nearest you. Cut the pack, keep a pinky break. Then with your right thumb, riffle up the back edge of the pack so that one card flies or sort of skips down below the break. What this means, you're going to end up with a break not beneath Martin's card, but above Martin's card. Just do a riffle force now. He calls stop, you say fine. Push that card forward for about half of its length. And now you can either reveal that prediction or this prediction first. It really doesn't matter. It depends on your performing style. Let's say, for example, though, I have the spectator turn over the card and it reads a red card. And I slowly tip this one over, boom, and everyone can see it's a 4 of hearts and, the psychic was right. Now, of course, they're going to be dutifully unimpressed, which is just a delicious psychological setup for the next step. Because now you say, well, actually, even though it seems like only a 50-50 chance here, you did something much more impressive than I thought you were going to do, Martin. And that is, and now when you pull up and they see that it's the only card with a name on it, and that name is his name, and they can go through all the cards and find no other names. It's just a super strong ending to the effect. Most people have an aversion to hurting other people. At least that's what it is on a conscious level. What about on an unconscious level? This little experiment tries to take a look at that and gets several spectators involved. For this, we're going to use 5 pay envelopes, which can be examined, closely examined, by the spectators. Along with the 5 pay envelopes, we're going to use a pad of paper, a marker, and a weapon. But I don't want to take the weapon out just yet. I'm going to leave a little dramatic suspense. Here we go. First, we need the guinea pig, the human being, the subject, if you will. And in this case, here we are. We've got our little stick figure here. That will be the subject. Now take this out, fold it up, and tuck it inside one of the unmarked manila envelopes, like so. Now, just to make sure that everything looks sort of similar across the board here, I'm going to tear out, and again, this is where I'd have other spectators involved, tear out 1, 2, 3, 4 other obviously blank pages, okay? Fold these up and tuck them inside. Now, as I said, people's aversion to violence is usually on an or I should say a conscious level, because we're all socially sort of well-behaved people. But what about on an unconscious level? So we're going to find out. We have 4 blank pages, only 1 human being in this experiment. And I did warn you earlier that we are also going to use a weapon. Now, this is normally not considered a weapon, okay? Looks like an ordinary kind of office item, but I think you'll agree that this does have the power to do a fair bit of harm. Actually, it's more violent than a knife or a gun, because a hole punch maims, whereas the others, of course, the pain is immediate and over quickly. We'll take our human being and we'll openly and slowly mix it in with the other blank pages. Having mixed it in, so hopefully nobody is aware of exactly where the human being is, I then ask a spectator to make a very important choice among the envelopes, to choose one. They choose one. I say, fine, you're sure that's the one you want? They have a completely fair choice. They say yes. I say, fine, go ahead, punch. And they do. Perhaps causing harm, we have no idea. It's a 1 in 5 chance that they hurt the human being. Say, we'll put that one aside. Now we're down to these 4. You've got a 1 in 4 chance, assuming the human is still alive among these. Which one's next? They choose this one. I say fine. And again, each is a totally fair choice. A second one is hurt. I say now it's a 1 in 3 chance, where the human being could already have been hurt, but which one do you want? They choose another one, totally fairly. And again, punch a hole in that one. We're now down to 1 in 2, if in fact the human being is even still surviving. They choose one. I say, fine. We started with 5. It was a 1 in 5. Then 1 in 4, then 1 in 3, and finally 1 in 2. That actually makes a total of a 1 in 14 chance that the human being survived. We'll see now if on some unconscious level you were able to maintain the position in your mind of where the human was the entire time. And we find out that yes, in fact, this time at least, the human got out alive. As human beings, we tend to be a very self-obsessed or an absorbed species. So it's not surprising that if you bring a little bit of the human element to an effect that in itself seems pretty dry, you can bring a lot of life to it. This effect, homicide, is precisely that kind of thing. Now, you're going to need a few different things. For starters, you're going to need a grand total of 9 pay envelopes, okay? Get 4 sheets of notepad and draw a little stickmen on them. Note that they're not identical, but they're awfully close. Certainly you do this enough times, you'll get a sense of your what kind of stickman. I guess this guy maybe is the strangest of the lot. I mean, ultimately, he seems to have something the others don't have. But apart from that, you get those, fold them up into thirds, tuck them inside 4 pay envelopes, and lick them. So, what I have at this point are 4 pay envelopes. They're all sealed, and inside each of these is a little stick man, all right? And they're all facing the same way. That's sort of a small point, but it's important. They're all sort of facing the same flap side up, all right? Now, What I did is I did my switch, which is what you're going to need to do. I did my switch off the chair. But normally I would be working with a small case, and I'd put that down if I were doing walk around, or of course if you're doing a set performance, then any surface behind a bar or again in your case is great. You can even do it in the pocket switch, again if you're wearing a jacket. And the key motivator is when you get the hole punch is when you do the switch. Now let's assume you're working out of a case though. You'll have the 4 envelopes, prepared envelopes, inside your case, okay, along with the hole punch, like that. That means I'm set to go. Now, the performance itself, of course, is super simple. You got your 5 empty envelopes, which I would advise you to definitely hand them out and have people take a look at them, have them examined. The notepad, of course, you draw one of your little stick men, and because you've done it hundreds of times by now, the stick men tend to look real similar. You take that and you stuff it inside one of the envelopes. Any old envelope will do. This is a rare kind of trick because there's no pencil dots on the envelope. You lick and seal. There's no pencil dots. You don't have to know which is which. And you isolate that one. Put that off to the side, just even 6 inches, a foot, something like that. Then tear out the other 4 pages. And what I do in performance is I hand the 4 pages to 3 or 4 different spectators. And while talking to the one spectator, I'll have the other people slip them inside. One of the great things about mentalism is it does tend to get people very intimately involved in proceedings. And that at the same time adds a whole air of honesty and sort of above board the whole thing. So all 4 slips of paper go into the envelopes. All 4 then sealed again. Having people lick envelopes can be a tricky thing. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll make a point of doing all the licking. I can sort of tell certain groups they're easygoing. Other groups just don't want to get involved, especially these days. Fine. Now, you're holding them in your left hand. This is very important that they're being held in your left hand at this point, as you then let the audience know that you're going to get something. This is important because if you suddenly in the middle of an effect dive into your pockets or dive down to your case, it looks suspect. But if you say, well, it's now time, I don't mean to horrify any of the people here, but I'm going to now get the weapon. Create suspense. Now watch when I go down to the case. I go down to the case. I grab the hole punch in my right hand, leave these, scoop these up in my left hand, and I come forward letting this lead. That's a very important point. Let the object that you're getting lead the focus, so everyone's focus is there. This hand follows. And of course, the trick's done. The effect is completely, it's now ready to go because hand that out, have it examined, we can make a joke about, oh, it's a sharp edge one, careful, don't cut yourself. Take what they assume is the only one with a stick man in it, but of course they all have stick men. Put it in the middle. Mix them up. You can even have one of the spectators give them a thorough mix-up. And the rest is really an important part, really comes down to presentation and emphasizing the sort of the wonder of what you're doing. And in this case, always clear things away. Get it all focused down. Let them choose one and punch a hole in that one. Whichever one they punch a hole, and I emphasize the presentational point of 1 and 5, 1 and 4, 1 and 3, 1 and 2. Once they've chosen all 4, I pick these up, flash them, showing all the holes in them. Take the hole punch, I put that away. So at the very end, you're only left with a single image of the one little envelope they did not choose, even though they had many opportunities. I tear it open, and then I hand it to somebody else, typically. Have them reach inside, and they remove the relieved and unharmed stickman. And the rest comes down to emphasizing what you're doing with your presentation. The power of contact, the power of touch, the laying on of hands. The deck is shuffled by a spectator. I say, fine. I take the cards back. I say, I want you to say the word stop. Anytime you feel the urge, you say stop. They say stop. They stop at a card. I say, fine. Remember that card. Keep it in mind. I say, have you ever taken a close look? Take a close look at my fingertips. Look at those. Look at those. They might seem pretty ordinary looking to you, but actually, they're very, very sensitive. Sensitive in a way that very few people's are. Watch, I'll show you. Let's try something. I'm going to go through the cards. I go to a second spectator, and I say, I'd like you to say the word stop anytime you want to the second spectator. They call stop. I say, fine. We'll put that card down on the table. The second spectator, I should say, puts their hand on the card. I say, fine. Now, the deck has been shuffled. I say, but with my powerful touch, with my fingers, I can actually determine the identity of the cards. I say, look, I'll put them behind my back. Let's see, I think that's a 9 of diamonds. I'm pretty sure that's a 9 of diamonds, I think. I say the next one is just touching it. I can feel it. It's black. It's a spade. It's the 7 of spades. I say here's the next one. I'm pretty sure. Oh, it's a court card. It's red. It's a king of diamonds, I think. King of diamonds. I say now I can keep doing this all day long, but we can take a king of. There's a 6 of hearts. I say let's take it a step further. And I have the spectator who has their hand on top of their card, I just tickle the back of their hand and say, I'm going to try to determine or divine the card that's laying face down underneath your hand. The card not even you know. I see black, I see a spade, I think it's a 6 of spades. I get that. And finally, I turn to the spectator who's merely thinking of a card. I put my hands or 2 of my fingers against their temple and I say, concentrate. 10 of diamonds, right? This is a totally souped up version of a beginner's magic effect. This is a real workhorse. This is one of these anytime, anywhere, you can count on this one to always get very strong reaction. You got the rule of 3 working, which is always great. But the flurry of the sort of at the beginning, the revelations at the beginning sort of build nicely. It's a contrast because typically you speed up and as you go into effect, it's sort of boom, 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 boom is the kind of rhythm of a classic effect. But in this case, it's more like boom, 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 boom. Different kind of rhythm, okay? And you're working, of course, it's a perfect transitional effect from magic to psychic or mentalism because you literally move from the physical world to the immaterial or the mental world in one effect, okay? So there's a lot going on. I really like this effect. The fact that it's completely impromptu, of course, only makes it all the more practical. Shuffle deck of cards. You begin by having someone peek at a card. They say stop. Boom, in this case, we're looking at the 8 of spades. Okay, so they say stop at the 8 of spades. Keep a little pinky break. That's fine. Now, the reason I keep the pinky break is because I'm about to do a peek. Okay, and I'm using a very old peek, which is if you're keeping a pinky break, simply by turning the cards over, and you can do it with one hand or both hands, in revolving the cards over, it creates an immediate gap or a step where you can see half or 3/4, or if you want a larger gap as well, I can see just that much of the 8. I know it's the 8 of spades. The misdirection I use as I do this, okay? As I go through, they call stop at any card. I then say, do me a favor, hold out your hands, or I say, have you taken a close look at the end of my fingers? And I just turn over the deck there, I extend here. While they're looking at the end of my fingers, it's easy at this point for me to peek down and spot what is in this case the 5 of clubs, okay? So it's easy for my sight lines to go from here to spot the break, boom, like that, fine. So I now know the card the first spectator is thinking of. The next phase. At the same time, note that while the deck was face up, I also spotted the bottom card, which is the Queen of Clubs, okay? It was easy for me to see both cards. I take the deck, I cut the pack, and I keep a pinky break, and what I'm going to do is after cutting the pack, I then let one card sort of riffle off the back of the thumb, boom, and I keep a pinky break, in this case, just above the Queen, which was the card I first spotted on the bottom. Now I'm going to riffle force this, okay? So first there was the peak, then they call stop, boom, I riffle force to the Queen, and I drop the Queen on the table, have someone put their hand on it, fine. Now I might give the cards one other shuffle, while I say, actually, I'm going to try just to warm up here, and I spot the bottom card again, in this case, the 10 of diamonds. Now comes that old sort of shop-worn effect, beginner's effect, which in and of itself is quite strong. When I get the cards behind my back, what I do is I take the 10 of diamonds off the bottom, move it to the top so it's face up, so it's off the bottom, face up on top of the deck. I grab the cards like that. Thumb at the bottom, 4 fingers at the front, or I guess sort of near the top of the deck, what's going to be the top of the deck. And when I bring them forward, I come forward like this and I name my first card. I say, oh, 10 of diamonds. And when I come up to show it, my eyes look directly into the spectator's eyes, okay? But I do not look here. You don't need to. I can see in my peripheral. The next card is the 10 of spades. You do not need to do this, okay? That's just not what you want to be doing, especially since everybody's looking right here. They'll see your eyes flit, okay? You're here, boom. Now I go down, I do the same thing. I move the 10 of spades from the bottom to the top, turning it face up as I go, and I go the next one to the 10 of spades. I come up. And just like that, I was able to cite the jack of spades. And again, I come up, boom, like that, boom, like that. I know the next one's the queen of spades. I got a bit of a run here. I don't know what happened. I should have shuffled my deck a little better, I guess. And I go boom, and I can keep going, okay? So you get that first part. Then just put the cards in your pocket or put them away, okay? Leave them in the setup they are. Don't fiddle with it. They go away. And of course, the last two phases of the effect is I go to the spectator now, who I know full well underneath their hand they're holding the queen of clubs. Is I rub the back of their hand, take a few moments, I say, oh, it's the black, it's a club, queen of clubs. Now at this point, people, first, that's a very freaky moment. People are going to even forget that somebody even peeked at a card. And then, sort of as an afterthought, I turn to the guy and I go, oh, and in your case, let me just, okay, and then you slowly name the color, the suit, and finally, the card they're merely thinking of. Now that's sensitive. Christmas can be a very emotionally trying time for people. It can be a tough time to make sense of all the choices and all the stuff you have to juggle. So I'm going to try to take you back to Christmas with one image. Sleigh bells. The sound and look of Christmas in a moment. I want you to make a choice. Make a choice between one of the bells. Go ahead, point to one of them, but realize that it's a very important choice. Like all choices, so much may come down to that one moment. Go ahead and make a choice. They choose one. Let's say they choose this one here. I say I'm going to move it forward for a second, and I'm going to give you a chance to change your mind. If you want to change your mind, go right ahead. You can have this one if you want. You can have this one. Any of these. I'll put this back in line and put the other one forward. Which one? Let's say they change their mind. They say, fine, I don't want that one anymore. Actually, I want this one. And I say, fine, I'll move that one forward. Are you sure that's the one you want? And they say they are sure. I say, fine. Hold it your hand. I'm going to let you hold on to your sleigh bell and hold on to it through the purse. They feel it. I say, and keep in mind, he could have taken any one of these. I extended them to a spectator and asked somebody to pick up one and give it a shake. Nothing. It's mute. I ask another spectator to give a shake. In fact, every single bell has no tongue because the clacker has been removed. These are all silent until, of course, I finally ask the spectator to open up the purse and pull out the one that they've been holding on to from the very beginning. They remove their bell and they give it a shake. And it's the only one with a voice. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Now you know why I do magic and mentalism and not a singer. 9 bells. That's the number of bells you're going to need. 9. 9 bells. 9 bells. Now, with 8 of them, what you can do, if you find the right little small bells, you can take a pair, like a screwdriver, and put it in there and open up one of the tongues and shake out the little piece of solder that's inside there. You do that with 8 of them. So 8 of them are mute. 8 of them have no little... The 9th one you leave unharmed. The 9th one has this little piece of solder inside, so it still makes a nice ringing sound. Put the 8 of them inside a purse. You can put them in a purse, you can put them in, I don't know, a hauled out chipmunk's head, or you could use a sock, whatever. They're in there, okay? This one, finger palm, right hand finger palm, dead simple, just there. Right hand finger palm, okay? You come out, talk about Christmas or holidays or whatever works for you as a performer, and spill the 8 bells out onto the table. Hold on to this purse. You're going to need it in a moment. Line these up, like that. Once you get them all lined up, notice I never draw attention to the number of bells, and nobody has ever commented on it either. Just the number of bells. Let them choose. This is the key to the trick. You want to spend all your time emphasizing that the choice is absolutely theirs. They can choose one. Give them plenty of opportunity to change their mind. Make sure you emphasize to them, we can change if you want. We can change if you want. Whichever one they finally choose, let's say they choose this one. Ask them to hold out their hand. As they hold out their hand, you pick up the bell and apparently put it inside the purse. But what you're doing is a variation really on, I guess it's really a bobo switch, where you're picking the bell off, and as you apparently toss it in, you're going to let this one fall, boom, and then this one just goes down into finger palm, okay? It's here, and then boom, like that. You want to get a bit of a wrist action with it. There's sound too, which is nice. So you get a bit of a wrist action from the front. It looks like this. Looks like you take the bell and apparently put it down inside, right? Okay, and of course you are giving them the only one of the 8. You're giving them the only one with the piece of solder inside. Close it up, ask them to hold onto the bell through the purse, being as fair as you can. Now, you've got one of these mute ones in finger palm, you've got these lined up. Use both hands to pick them all up, extend them towards somebody, and of course you've just, in a sense, cleaned up. You've cleaned up the one bell is now joined to all the others. Ask them to choose any one they want, they do. They shake, no sound. Another one, no sound. Have several spectators pick up 1 or 2 apiece until they're all shaken and people can see there is no sound in any of these. To finish, ask the spectator to open up the purse and remove theirs. They do, and the look on their face. I'd like you to say the word stop whenever you feel the urge. Stop, they say. Keep that card in mind. You at this point are thinking of one of these cards. We both know that. However, I want you to help me. In fact, you're going to sort of divine where exactly the card you're thinking of is. Touch a card. Actually, I'm going to have you touch several cards. I go through the pack, and I have the spectator touch many cards. In fact, so many cards, it's quite possible that the card they're thinking of is one of these cards. How many cards are we looking at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 playing cards. I say think of a number. In fact, name it out loud between 1 and 10. They say, let's say, for example, 6. I say, all right, I'm going to ask you to count the cards down onto the table like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the cards, okay? I hand the cards back to them and they count them down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I say, you're thinking of a card. They name the card. I turn it over. And that is the card they were thinking of. A pinky break, followed by a cull, followed by the Vernon substitute transfer, and finally, the age-old countdown force. So simple. Put those together, and you have a really nice sort of thought-of card to revelation that has the strong feeling that the spectator literally did everything. This is, all things told, this is one of my favorite impromptu pieces of sort of psychic demonstration. I always have the cards shuffled. I think it's almost impossible to have a pack of cards over-shuffled when doing, particularly when emphasizing a psychic sort of mood in a presentation. I riffle through the cards. Someone calls stop, in this case at the Jack of Spades. I let it close, but actually keep a left pinky break directly below the Jack. Now, when I spread the cards out, what I'm going to do is I spread until my left, or should I say my right fingertips, enter the gap directly below the Jack. At the same time, my left thumb sort of secures a position or plants itself, not on top of the Jack, but the card above the Jack. What that's going to do is give cover so that as the left thumb pulls the indifferent card above the Jack, the right fingers cull the Jack to the right. I continue spreading the cards. And of course, notice how the Jack ends up on the bottom of the deck. In performance speed, we'll do it again. They call stop. They see the 7 of hearts. I spread out the cards, and when I come to it, I spread through the cards, saying I could have taken any card, and in that action, I've been able to get the 7 of hearts on the bottom. Now I'm going to do the Vernon substitute transfer, one of my all-time favorite moves, and when it comes to mentalist effects, I just use it again and again because it looks perfectly natural and it's totally invisible. Spread through the cards, and I have several cards touched. Don't keep count of them. Just go through, have them touch 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cards. The nice thing about this is it really sells the idea that one of these cards could well be the card they're thinking of. When you get to the last few cards, there's the selection. When you close them up, keep a pinky break. A pinky break. But in this case, I'm going to use the Vernon substitute transfer, not as a transfer, but as an add-on. I kick these cards to the side. My right hand comes over and lifts everything other than the bottom card. The bottom card is actually brought along for the ride as the right hand moves forward, or the left hand moves forward. The bottom card is brought along for the ride, so it ends up on the bottom of these cards. Deck is put aside. Now reverse count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cards, bringing the selection to the top. Then I say to the spectator, all right, you're thinking of any card, you touch the number of cards, your card might be among these. Name a number between 1 and 10. And if they say 4, for example, I say, what I'm going to ask you to do is deal 1, 2, 3, 4 cards onto the table. Boom. I've just demonstrated what I want them to do, but I've also positioned their card now fourth from the top, automatically by reversing the order of the cards. To finish, I just hand them the cards. They take them, they deal 1, 2, 3, 4 onto the table. I say, go ahead, name the card you're thinking of. They do, and I say, turn over that card. Boom. Resistance is futile. Go ahead, resist me. I'm going to try my best to psychically force you to touch the odd card. One of them is different than all the others. You can see that. But I'm going to force you to touch it nonetheless. However, what's key is that you resist me. Resist me. Go ahead. Try to see if you can touch one other card other than the odd card. And of course, the spectator leans over and, let's say, touches this one. I go, you sure that's the one? Are you positive? You don't want to change your mind. That's the one you want. I say, okay. I told you. I told you that you were going to have a hard time resisting me when it comes to touching the odd card. And in fact, that was the card you touched, the odd card. You may not believe me, but of course, it's the only one with a blue back. All the others have red backs. This is a great little packet trick and can really leave the strong impression that you have some psychic control over people. For this, you're going to need first an envelope and cut a big hole in the back of the envelope, just on one side of the envelope, okay? This you're going to need there because you want to make sure the double-sided sticky tape on the jack doesn't adhere to everything else in your pocket. So if you have this little hole there, it sort of keeps the packet separate from everything, but also doesn't mean that this is stuck to the inside of the envelope. You've got a little piece of double-sided sticky tape, about 1/2 inch long, on the uppermost jack, okay? Got all these jacks, a total actually of 12 jacks, and 1 queen of hearts. All of them have red backs. All of them, except for the one with double-sided sticky tape on it. That's the one, of course, that has a blue back. The rest is self-working. However, you've got to be careful about the light hitting that and flashing. So what I do is, as soon as I take the packet, this rests in here. As soon as I take it out, I turn them over, and I cover this with my thumb. I don't step right on it, I don't push right on it, I just sort of get in front of it, and I spread out like that. And I say, you know, try to resist me, try to resist me. What's fun about this is that they'll often start by touching the queen as if they're playing along, and I go, see, I proved it to you. I knew you'd have to do it. Let's try it again, but this time really try to resist me. Sometimes they resist me right off the top, and they'll touch one of the other jacks. Boom, they touch a jack. Now, if they touch the very top jack, of course, then you can just go like this, show, look, it's blue, and all the others are red, and you're done. But it's very rare someone touches the top jack. So instead, I spread through whatever one they touch. I spin out, drop it on top, and press. And just like that, the 2 jacks now are stuck. I turn over and say, I told you I would force you to touch the odd one, and they don't know what you mean by this point. Drop that on the table, and then to cover any of the front edge flashing, because it's now double on the table, is I drop the others one by one on top. And as you do this, it's always a good idea to not only cover the front edge, but to drop a few near some spectators, so if they want to pick up anything, they pick up one of the cards nearest them. There's a thin line between the paranormal and the paranoid. Case in point, look, damaged cars, casualties of war. Just the other day I was doing something pretty unusual for some people, and this guy got so freaked out, he was holding 3 cards, a queen, a jack, and a king. He's holding them, and suddenly he got so freaked out he just tore them, ripped them right in half, as you can see. Let's try something with these 3 cards. What I'll do is I'm going to leave the face down ones in front like that, and in fact, even take them and give them a little bit of a mix-up. So you obviously have no idea what order the cards are in, but I think on some level you still might be able to figure it out. So let's do this. I'm going to move them around until one of the spectators is happy with their position. At any time they can stop me. When they feel the urge, they can just stop me. And let's assume that at this point, a spectator decides, or even the spectator can move it around themselves. They stop there and I say, well, we're going for the king here, how'd you do? Oh, good, you found the other half, nicely done. Going for the jack here, good, that's well, and of course that must leave the queen here. I would say you have more than just a little latent psychic ability. What could be easier than the Mexican turnover combined with 6 gimmicked cards. And they are, well, I guess they're gimmicked half cards actually, because these are double facers. You've got a Jack of Clubs on one side and on both sides, Queen of Diamonds on both sides, King of Clubs on both sides. The other 3 half cards are double backers. All pretty straightforward. The setup is alternately with a face-up one and then the double backer, double facer, double backer, double facer, double backer. Have the whole thing with a rubber band around it. And I love the fact, I like using this as a warm-up effect, as something that I wouldn't close certainly a little performance with, because it's just, you know, it's just 3 elements coming together. Statistically, it's not overall that impressive. But I just like the idea of suggesting that not everybody gets a big kick out of this kind of thing. Taking them out, showing them. I turn the packet of them over, spread through them again. It's a nice little convincer on both sides. Then I divide them with the face-down ones at the front and the face-up ones at the back. And notice that I've got the edges, the torn edges along the front row and along the back row, that they're all pointing forward towards the audience. I gather up the face-down ones. And I gather them up to give them a mix-up, but also to give them a little bit of a bend. I push down in the middle of them like this just for a second so that the edges are coming up off the table when I put them down. This facilitates the Mexican turnover. To finish, you can either have a spectator slowly move them around or yourself slowly move them around, whatever. You can even, of course, move around the face-up ones as well. Your choice on which ones you want to sort of focus. When they finally decide, you hold one of the face-up ones on the far left by the right-hand side, and you slip it, the left first finger pushes down. You'll find it teeters up that edge, making it all the easier for you to do the Mexican turnover, which is this. Finger down, come over. You push this underneath. The thumb is going to pull back on the face, the double backer, as the right fingers push the other one forward into the awaiting left thumb and finger. So it's here, there, wave it, go, oh, you got the Jack. Pick up the next face card, in this case the Queen. Slip it underneath, again the left finger offering support, and it's in one fluid action, showing the Queen. And finally, the last card, of course, since the second, once you've done the first 2 cards, act as if the last card is standard. Turn over, it's a given that that one's correct, and you're done. I really like this effect as a warm-up for an audience. I mean, statistically, the fact that they find all 3 and they perfectly match them up isn't, you know, doesn't border on the astonishing, though it is kind of noteworthy. So it makes for a perfect warm-up. I wouldn't do this as a first effect, but it's a great second effect, just to sort of establish that one spectator has a certain psychic ability, and then you go on to a third effect, which is, I guess, much more engrossing and statistically much more impossible with this now tested spectator. Russian, chicken, wedding, president, table, monitor, snowstorm, mother, lake, dinner, dog, alfalfa, clouds. A folded piece of notepaper is introduced and given to a spectator to hold on to. Slip of paper, pair of scissors. Sir, I'm going to slowly move the scissors down this strip of paper. As I do, when you feel the urge to say stop, please say stop, okay? In fact, better yet, don't even say stop, say cut, all right? When you feel the urge, anytime, and I move down it, and at some point, the spectator says, cut. And I say, right there, are you sure you don't want me to move even half an inch up or down? Maybe they have me move half an inch up. I say, fine. Are you sure? They say, yes. I say, watch. And I slowly cut the piece of paper exactly where they said. I say, what's interesting is you'll see. You asked me to cut the word. This is a strip of words, in fact, going from children to apartment, poetry, automobile, exercise, fountain, money, beauty. Every word is different. They can't examine it. And they find that I cut right through the middle of one word, the word mountain. The slip of paper is opened up, and they find a drawing of a mountain. This is my handling of a very old idea. It used to be commonly performed by mentalists and magicians with a strip of newspaper from the classified ads. And what they do is, the whole principle behind it is that you're holding the text upside down. However, I never really liked that. I did it for people, and what you had, though, is you'd go down and you'd clip, and you would have predicted along what line of type in a newspaper that they would call stop. And you'd have the line, what is the line? And the line was like, and the car is, or something. It was meaningless. It meant nothing. So what I've done is I just went to the computer, which I'm sure you can do at your home computer, and I've got a list of exactly 30 words. And I think this is 14-point type, and you want thick, blocky type. And again, choose the most provocative and interesting words you can. I've got mountain, chicken, music, ocean, president, wedding, table, perspective, secretary, mustache, automobile, theater, ice cream, crayon, all this stuff. However, the top and bottom words are the same. In this case, mountain, something I can readily draw. I'd have a hard time drawing, for example, exercise. How do you draw that? I guess you could do a weight or something. Now, so you've got a column of words here, provocative words and a nice thick point or typeset. You're going to cut through the word mountain, which is on the bottom of the column. You're going to cut it right in half. And then you're going to cut in on the top word, which is also mountain. You're going to cut that in half. So essentially, you have the lower half of the word mountain here and the upper half there. That's your setup for the strip of paper. You also, of course, need a pair of scissors, and you need a folded piece of paper, a notepad, with in this case, a mountain on it. If you're working for 100 people, you can do this effect, but of course, you're going to want a bigger piece of paper. If you're doing walk around or you're at a bar, just a small piece of note paper. I've actually done, in close-up settings, I've done this kind of thing, and I found out you can have a piece of paper that's too big. It comes across as a bit of a performance rather than as a sort of an experiment or an attempt with a small group of people. Has a whole different tone. Anyway, so you're all set to go. Start off by asking someone to hold on to this. You don't have to tell them why. Just say, would you please hold on to this? I had an inkling about something the other day. They do that. Fine, they hold on to it. You have this, do not tell them what's on this strip. No need to tell them at first. Just say, here's the strip, I'm going to go down. When you have a gut feeling, say stop. Wherever they say stop, it's key that you cut between two words. Right, between. Wherever they say stop, I say fine. And you want to make sure your cut is straight and clean across. And I am holding it upside down at this point. All right? Straight and clean across. Right, like. And let the piece fall to the ground. I put the scissors on the table, or I put them in my pocket, and as I bend down, or ask somebody else to bend down, as I go down to pick it up, I'm going to turn this piece 180 degrees. Okay? Quite simple to do. Watch really the tips of the two fingers pivoted around the thumb, the left thumb. Okay? So I go down, I pick it up like this, and I immediately come up and I hold, and it looks to all the world that that's precisely where they said the word cut. And the word mountain perfectly matches, the two perfectly come together. That's about it. The only other tip I can tell you is because I actually put this together for a quick demo here on the tape, what I didn't do is take more of my time with making sure the columns are straight. Look what happens if they're not perfectly straight. See how that's a little off there like that? You don't want that. Obviously, that gives away the principle. So you want to make sure that when you do the strips, that the columns are perfectly straight. Boom, they see mountain, and at that point you ask the spectator to open up the slip of paper, and people can see. And it's one of these nice effects that really doesn't really require a lot of words, that your prediction perfectly matched. The imagination is an extremely powerful thing. Just how powerful? I'll show you. Deck of cards, handkerchief. The deck is covered, and a spectator is asked to lift off as many cards as they want. He or she can lift off 5 cards, they can lift off 40 cards. It's a completely fair choice. They cut the pack wherever they want, and they feel the deck with their fingers. Let's say they lift off, half a deck or so. I say, fine. You've cut to a card. I'd like you to take a peek at that card. Remember the playing card. Keep it in mind. Put the cards back under the pack. The deck is wrapped up, and the deck is handed to the spectator. The spectator holds on to the deck. Magician's hands are empty, okay? Say, fine. I want you now, since we're going to talk about your imagination, I want you to use that muscle, and I want you to think of the backs of the cards, all those blue backs. Think of the ink fading. Think of going from blue to almost a gray, then from a gray to even fainter gray, and finally to white. Now turn the deck over in your mind and think of the faces. Think of all the faces, the court cards, the number cards, the red, the black. Think of those colors fading, all except for the card you're thinking of. Think of the reds becoming pinks, the blacks becoming grays. Think of all the colors slowly draining away. You're thinking of a card. Open up the handkerchief. They open up the handkerchief and they see something is wrong with the deck. In fact, when they go through the cards, they see that every single card is blank. They are all blank, all except for one card, and it is the one card that they cut to, the one card they're thinking of. And best of all, the entire deck can be examined. If there is any effect worth a deck switch, this is the one. This is an interesting combination of sort of magic elements and psychic elements. It's really going to be, it's one of these ones that can be played a few different ways. And for me, this is a great effect to do as a transition to going from a few effects that were obviously more of a magic nature to more of a psychic or mentalist nature. This uses an extremely old force, a very old force, and a totally blank deck of cards and one other card. That's all you need. Once you do the deck switch, you are good to go. Okay, let's look at the force. Now, the key to this force, the key to the setup is you have one card on top of a deck of cards that is blank on both sides, okay? That's there. When I take the cloth handkerchief and I apparently just cover the deck, what I actually do is turn over the deck, okay? And the action I'm using is I just take my thumb beneath it and turn it over like that. That's all I'm doing. And it's important that when you hold the handkerchief, don't hold it by one finger, because then the handkerchief tends to be, when you cover it, it doesn't give you as wide a coverage. What you want to do is have it really grip with the fingers spread out so it's really wide, okay? You come over like this, and as I come over, just as this is at that point obscuring the view, my left thumb goes beneath and turns the deck 180 degrees over as the cloth covers it. In performance speed, it looks like this. Here, here, there, and you're done, okay? Now, position the deck on your hand so it's lying, having turned it over, it's lying with no bits of handkerchief catching underneath. It's gotta be lying just flat with, of course, all the blank cards now facing upwards. Grip some of the cards below, 10 or 15 cards, lift them up, then about half the deck. As you're asking the spectator, or as you're sort of describing them, what you're gonna want to do is to lift and cut anywhere they want. Emphasizing this cut is very important. Emphasizing the fairness of it. And say lift them just a few inches off the deck. When they do, ask them if they want to change their mind, so they can drop the cards back down and cut somewhere else. Very important. This is a very old force, and it's just a marvelous force. They lift wherever they want, finally. Now, beneath the handkerchief, I'm going to reverse what I did before. My left thumb is again going to go under the deck, roll it over, and come out. And now I'm showing what in fact was just the bottom card. Now, if I come up like this and I show you the card, you see a lack of an index there. So you want to use your left finger to cover that. So as you come up like that. One other point, I always turn my head away. My head is turned. Now notice the difference between me just showing it to you here and having my head turned way up here. It's two spheres of focus. What I would rather do is come up, time it so that I'm here, and make sure it's right in line with my head so that they are forced to see that my head is turned. They take that information in. That's very important. As I come down, my thumb pulls the card back flush onto the pack, put the pack under the handkerchief, square the deck up. There's no more secret moves to be done. Hand the deck to the spectator. Have them hold on to it. At this point, this is when essentially you want to make the effect clear in people's minds. My favorite structures are ones where you've done all the so-called dirty work beforehand. You do that, you set up the conditions, now you emphasize what's about to occur, really emphasize the whole imagination and the colors fading, and then finally let them open up. And when people open up and they see a blank card on top, that alone gets a good reaction, just the fact that there's a blank card. Now, I take the deck from them and very gingerly, while handling the deck, I turn it 180 degrees. I turn it over. Why? Because theatrically, when I first come across the only fully printed card, I want it to be face down. If I don't turn over the deck, it'll be face up. So you spread through, come to the one card, take it out, hand the deck to somebody else, have them really examine the cards, make sure they're all double blank, and you finish by having the thought of card named, turn it over, and it's just a total killer psychic effect. I'd like you to take this book of matches and hold it behind your back. There you go, good. Now, while you're holding it behind your back, I'd like you to open it up and feel the matches. I think you'll feel that there's a good 15, 20 matches in there, and if you kind of riffle around with your fingers, you can see there are a couple of different rows of matches. There's some near the back, near the flap, some near the front. There's a real range of matches. Kind of tickle the matches. Just tickle the matches for a second and see if you feel drawn to one match in particular. Whatever match you feel drawn to, I'd like you to right now rip that match out of the matchbook, okay? Hold it in your hand, close up the matchbook, okay? Close it back up, and continue to hold the match in your fist behind your back, but bring the matchbook forward with your other hand. That's great. Thank you very much. Okay. So you took a match out of here. Now, I have a confession to make. I actually, not too long ago, I made a mark on one of these. Actually, with the marker I have in my pocket here, what I did is I took the cap off the marker and I opened the matchbook and I rubbed a whole lot of black on one side of one of the matches. I wonder what the odds are. I wonder what it would suggest about the connection between me, you, and the matches. If the one that I marked was missing now. And it seems to me quite clear that it is missing. But again, the proof of the pudding, of course, is in the eating. So if you'd be so kind as to bring your fist forward from behind your back, open your hand up, that's great, and turn over the match, and I think we're going to find you found the one match. The things you can do with a shuttle pass. This is, not strictly speaking, it's not a pure shuttle pass. It's actually a shuttle pass that's been given a sort of a treatment by Juan Tamarez. It's a 2-beat switch. That's done when you go to the pocket. And what you're going to be doing is switching a matchbook, which is filled with matches that all have black marks on them, either on one side or the other, or on both sides. Filled with, but these all have black marks in this matchbook, and in this matchbook they do not. And the rest, again, wonderfully, is pure presentation. To begin, and I prefer to shuttle pass this way than this way, from the right to the left rather than left to right. So in this case, I have the marker inside my right front pocket, which frankly, it pretty much always is anyway for a variety of things. So it's perfect that it's there. When I go into my pocket and introduce the matchbooks originally, I actually pull out both matchbooks. And I've got the one with the blank one, the one with no markings on it. In my left hand, it's sort of in finger palm, I guess you could say, but it's a real loose. It's just sort of held there casually in the hand, and the hand's down by my side. I come up, boom, I hand the matchbook with all the marked matches to the spectator, have them take them, hold them behind your back, and again, I don't just use my right hand as I gesture now, sort of suiting my actions to the words. I'll use the other hand as well and make sure the hands mirror each other. That's an important way to diffuse focus, okay? So open up the matchbook behind your back, feel the matches. There's a variety of matches. Very important that you give them a chance, the tactile experience. The people watching, this will add nothing to their experience of the effect, but it'll add a lot to the one person's effect. And that one person is sort of an antenna of astonishment. How they respond is your front line, and the other people will pick up on that energy and respond in like kind, okay? So that's important to remember. To really, even if you're not selling the effect or emphasizing the effect, or I guess adding to the experience of the effect to other people around, at least the one person's experience is enriched, and that's key. Pull out one of the matches that you feel drawn to right now. Giving it a moment, a suddenness, a focus point is always important. They take one out, close the matchbook, hold it in your hand, bring the matchbook forward. So I've got it here now. I'm getting ready to do my switch. And I say, actually, I have a confession to make. And I don't want to start from here. I have a confession to make, because this is still watch me position. This is still focus. What I do is I relax a bit. I say, actually, I have a confession to make. Going from this position to this position and shifting my feet. immediately diffuses focus here. So here, I have confession to make. Now, I hold the matchbook here. This is my low position. And then I switch as I go to the pocket. And the key to this kind of stuff is make sure they know that you're going to the pocket prior to you actually doing it. Because if I just suddenly do this and this is going to look suspicious. Why is he going to the pocket? But if I say, actually, I have a confession to make. I took a black magic marker, and as I say magic marker, it comes up in their minds, and since I'm now talking about another object, for me to switch here, or for me to transfer from here to here and go to my pocket, it's implicit and obvious that he's going for the marker, okay? So I'm here, actually I have a confession to make. I took a black magic marker the other day, and I marked, see? Let's do it again. So I'm here, I've got the switch in one here, and I say, actually, I've got a confession to make. I took a black magic marker the other day, and I marked. I took it, and I made a big mark on one of the matches. See how I sort of fracture the sphere of focus for a moment, but then they're left with an impression that everything stayed in full view the entire time. Again, this is all a work very much pioneered and refined by Juan Tamariz, certainly one of the true masters of the use of misdirection. So you're here like that. I put this back in my pocket. You know what that does? That can, I believe, cancel the experience that not only you ever went to your pocket, but that you even took the marker out. You were talking about a marker, there was a marker, and ba, 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 okay? To finish, of course, I open this up and emphasize the fact that there is no marks on these. Now, is that perfect proof? No. That's why this builds nicely. If it was perfect proof, them opening their hand would be redundant. But I go, boom, I let someone take a look at it to see there are no marks there. It still leaves the question, did he really ever mark one? So when they bring their hand forward, open up and find the one marked, all the information, click, 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 comes together, creating a perfect psychic effect. The ultimate in-your-face, no-holds-barred prediction effect. Blue deck of cards, red playing card folded in quarters on a paper clip. I'm going to leave that on the table for now. With the blue deck, spectator is allowed to think of any card they want, literally any one. Doesn't matter, they can change their mind, go back and forth. Let's say in the end they went with the three of spades. I say, isn't that interesting that you thought of the three of spades out of every card in the pack? Now I ask them, I say, what are the odds? What's the probability? I mean, that folded red card from another deck. Since it's from another deck, the odds are about 1 in 52, they say. I say, fine. I say, how many jokers are normally in the pack? And they say 2. I say, so the overall odds of the card you mentioned matching that card are actually 1 in 54. I say, wouldn't it be weird, out of all the ones you could have named, if this card was the exact card I predicted? This, of course, is my folded card and paperclip, but I don't use a sign card. I use it as a prediction effect rather than in sort of an impossible between your palms, everywhere and nowhere at the same time kind of deal. Same move, same technique. Mercury card fold is used. Now, I should point out a couple of things. For starters, one of the ways I sometimes do this is when I take out the folded card on the paperclip. Here, I'll show it to you. There we go. When I take that out, sometimes what I've done is I've had a folded $100 bill. And I take it out, take the folded $100 bill off and hand it to somebody and say, if I'm wrong, he gets to keep it. You hold on to it. Okay, so in that sense, it's a powerful beginning. But I don't always do that. Sometimes I'll do other things. Another thing I've sometimes done is, first let me explain to you the method, sort of the deck handling, and then I'll show you one other thing that can add a real dramatic oomph to the effect. You're going to need a red bicycle card folded in quarters. Little tip here for you. When you fold it in quarters, make sure they're slightly misaligned, okay? That way your Mercury card fold doesn't have to be accurate. So rather than making it really neat, make sure it's slightly fanned a bit, okay? Now, the second tip is the paperclip shouldn't be all the way down, okay? That's the way it'll maybe ride in your pocket, but that's not much fun when it comes to the switch. Also, this is too high. It'll come off too easy. Somewhere around there. Now, this is one of my most popular effects with magicians, and I get emails all the time, people saying they use a big clothing, a wooden pin, or they'll use a bulldog clip or whatever. My argument is this is the best way to go. it is visual, but it's also really down to earth. It doesn't draw attention to yourself. It serves the function. All these reasons, this is my favorite way to go, okay? So this is a red one. You're also going to need a red deck of cards. The whole pack is red except for one card, which is a blue card. Now, so I don't want to forget to mention this tip. You could also take a black marker and draw a black X on the back of every one of the red cards if you want. Draw a big black X, and then draw a big black X on the back of the folded card. I mean, that even further distinguishes these cards from the blue deck you're starting, okay? So totally up to you. That's a little addition you may want to, I think it can add a great deal. You can even write names on the backs, right? You know, you will name this card. If you want to sit at home for hours and write name this card, or you will name this card on the back of every card, including the folded prediction, that's even a further way to take it, the visual distinctions. Now, as for the technique, I begin by taking out the folded card, drawing attention to it, putting it on the table, or isolating it under a glass. That's also a very nice image, an overturned glass. Okay, it's isolated, it's on the table. The rest is a cull and a mercury card fold. I spread through the deck, someone names a card. And I don't want to put too much emphasis on it, so when I go through, I say, name any card, doesn't matter which one, 10 of diamonds. Are you sure? You don't want to change your mind, you can have the ace of spades. Once they've finally decided, I don't want to isolate the card too much. That'll only work against the effect. Once they've decided, I want it to look like I closed the cards up, but I'm going to cull. And in this case, the right fingers are going to pull the edge of the 4 to one side, okay? While on this side, the left thumb pulls the card above the 4, in this case the 3, to my left. Those two actions combined give ample cover. Then you push on after that. Give ample cover for the secret move of culling the one card out from the middle. And as you square the cards up, it ends up on the bottom of the pack, directly above the blue back card. All right? Now, while I riffle the pack, I'm going to do the mercury card fold. I riffle once, I do the move, then I do it again. And this is all while asking the spectator a mathematical question. This always distracts them. So here's the move. Riffle. I grab the deck from above, and I make sure to make that the right thumb is a little further down than it normally is. Then here's the move. The left hand backs up, buckling that card. Then the fingers curl, so that card ends up folded in quarters beneath the deck. Performance speed, we'll get rid of that one. Let's try another one, 6 of clubs in this case. Performance speed, it looks like this. Takes about a second. Let's try another, okay? In this case, the 9 of clubs. There, back, and I am at that point riffling. Let me do one for you while you're watching burning the deck. Burn the deck, and while you're doing that, I'll do one performance speed, okay? So it's here. I'm done. Once I have the fold, let's do one more. Again, you can burn the deck, performance speed, riffle to cover the sound. I'm done. At this point, I put the deck down. My right hand moves over to pick up this, and what I've done when I put the deck down is I leave the folded card in a casual finger palm in the left hand. Finger palm. I pick this up, and I come up with both hands. All right? Now I'm going to apparently take the paper clip off the folded card. Now, of course, with you burning it now, you might see a minor discrepancy between the two folds. But in performance speed, when I should say during a performance, there's nothing to see. It looks to all the world like he comes up, takes the paperclip off, and that's left. Here's what I'm doing. I'm coming over. My left thumb is pressing on that card. My right tips of my right fingers and thumbs grip this, and I go up. I'll show you again. So I'm here showing this. I come up. I take. The paperclip never leaves the folded card. Up, take. In a continuing action, I go to my pocket with the paperclip. But of course, I'm just leaving the folded card. I bring attention back up here. I say you could have thought of any card. You change your mind 2 or 3 times. But isn't it interesting? You might have to question just how free your will really is.
An experiment with something pretty much everyone carries on them at all time. That's spare change.
You ask for some spare change. Who's got some spare change? You get 3 or 4 people to contribute some spare change, pennies, dimes, nickels, quarters. Then you say, actually, let's get rid of the pennies, dimes, and nickels. Let's just stick with the quarters so that what we're going to be using are elements or pieces that all have almost exactly the same weight. Having established that, you say, let's take it a step further, in fact. We're going to make a mark. I'd like to make some suggestions of some popular shapes, some classic shapes or symbols. Let's say someone says a circle. I say, fine, draw a circle, big circle on one of them. And somebody else maybe says a triangle, so you draw a triangle on one of the other ones. And then someone else says a square, and you draw a square like that. Maybe somebody else says a star, so you draw a star on one of them like that. There we go. And maybe someone even says a letter, which is fine. They say the letter B, so you draw a big B on it like that. Gather all the quarters up, and again, remember, these are all borrowed, and I give them to someone to hold on to. They hold them in their cupped hands, and they shake them. And while the spectator is shaking them in his or her hands, while they are, I look at them and I go, let me get a sense. Okay, and I make a prediction. I'm not sure. I make my prediction, I leave it right there. In fact, I fold it in half, tear it out, and then crumple it up. And I hand it to somebody else to hold on to, which they do. The spectator, all the while, is shaking them. I say, make sure they're turning over in your hands and going upside down and around. While they shake them, I then say, please drop them to the table. And what we're going to do is any of the ones that are left sort of blank side facing up, we're going to get rid of those. And they drop them. We get rid of those, leaving us with 3. I say, pick them back up again, and they do. And again, bear in mind, they are shaking them. These are borrowed coins. In fact, we got rid of 2 more, leaving us with the triangle. Somebody opens up my prediction and see that it is a perfect match. This is, of course, the old double-headed coin trick. And what I've done to breathe a little more life into it is to bring the symbols, which not only, I think, makes it a lot more of an interesting effect, but it makes it visually a lot clearer. The problem with the old double-headed coin trick before, when they used to shake it and dump them, is unless you were within a foot of what was going on, you couldn't even see whether it was heads or tails or what. So watch. Now you are going to need, this is all borrowed change except for 1 coin. That's the 1 quarter you're going to ring in. Let's assume you're going to predict a triangle. So you draw a triangle on one side of a quarter. Everything else is borrowed. And again, I do advise, rather than asking for quarters off the top, which can sound a little suspicious, or at least a little overly particular, and you really want to always give the impression, particularly as a mentalist, that everything is organic and you're sort of just going with whatever the situation offers. I always say, who's got some change? In fact, if a few of you have some change, that'll be really helpful. Then I act like it's just off the top of my head. Actually, let's go with quarters, and I offer a decent, a credible explanation, because we want to make sure the weight of all the coins is exactly the same. Now, I've got this in finger palm. Very easy matter when gathering in quarters to ring this 1 coin in with the other coins, and then just keep an eye on it, and you know, boom, there's your double-headed coin ready to go. Narrow it down to 5 or 6 quarters, whatever, and ask people to suggest some symbols. And not always will they suggest a triangle, so I'll offer it at some point, but let's say the first one is a symbol of a square, and I go, fine, a square. You draw a square on one. Somebody else says a circle. Fine, you draw a circle. If they haven't mentioned triangle at this point, I'll say, oh, of course, we mustn't forget the old triangle. Get the triangle in there, boom, like that. Though typically that comes up pretty early. It's a very popular one. Star comes up, sometimes a heart. Heart also comes up a fair bit, so I'll say, okay, we draw a heart. Like that, boom. So it looks like you've been super fair, but this is a double-headed coin with a triangle on both sides. Now, I hand these to the spectator while they shake them. I sort of look them in the eyes, and people can understand I'm trying to gather some energy or get a clear picture on something, and I draw a big triangle on the pad of paper. Now, rather than tearing out the page like that, and of course you run a serious risk of flashing your prediction, I always fold it in half once, then tear it out and crumple it up. It wasn't until recently, really, that I didn't always crumple my predictions. Now I always crumple them. I love the casualness of it, tearing it out, crumpling it, and I always give them to someone to hold on to. That's always a great thing to do, okay? That way they're beyond switching, and you get somebody else emotionally involved. Boom. The rest, of course, is self-working. I pick them up, I hand them to them, they shake them, and it's just a matter of time as we exclude the ones that turn face down, it's just a matter of time before we end up, inevitably, boom, with a triangle. Have somebody open the prediction, which they do, and it matches perfectly. Finally, to clean up, though I have never really found there's any heat on the quarters because they were all borrowed, what I'll do is I'll just gather them up like this with the change that's around and sort of make some joke about, I think you had about this much, you had about that much, and it's easy at that point to palm this out. Of course, if you want to take it even further, you can have another quarter held out, and when you put away the notepad and pen, you can grab another quarter, a single-sided with a triangle, and ring it back in, switch it back in. But I generally don't go to that trouble. The change is going out, and nobody ever tends to look at you like, hey, I gave you 72 cents, cough it up. You don't get that a whole lot. I want to try something, and I want you to do absolutely everything, and I do mean everything. For starters, I want you to take the cards and give them a shuffle. They take the cards, they give them a thorough shuffle. I say, good. Next, I want you to put your hand on the cards, and I'm going to use you as a kind of human antenna, if you will. They put their hands on the cards, I look them deep in the eyes, and I say, through you, I'm going to get a sense of something that's going to happen in the very near future. Okay. I'm not sure. I'm seeing three numbers. I'm not sure the order of the numbers. I'm not sure how accurate I am. I'm not sure. We'll try. That there. I want you to remove the cards that you just shuffled. I want you to remove the deck from the case. They do. I said, you shuffle the cards. Now I want you to cut the cards. They cut the cards into two piles. I say, I want you to hand me either pile. They hand me whichever one they want. I say, fine. We'll get rid of those. You shuffle the cards, you cut the cards. Now I want you to deal the cards. And they deal the cards out into 3 rows. As I emphasize, they shuffled, they cut, they dealt. I say, I want you to turn over the top 3 cards. They do. I see there's an 8, a 5, and a 2. They open up the piece of paper, and even though they shuffled, and they cut, and they dealt, they see the 8, the 5, and the 2. I got all 3 numbers correct. You might have noticed that the 8, the 5, and the 2 in the cards were not in the exact same order as the way I predicted them on the piece of paper. Frankly, I used to perform this in a way and make sure the setup worked and the dealing worked that it always perfectly reflected the same order of the number on the prediction. But after a while, I came to the conclusion that it's actually more credible this way. It just seemed to be a little too pat to get the same cards in the same order. This sort of lends a whole air of credibility to the effect. You need the 8, the 5, and the 2, and I always use these 3 cards in any number you want, any order. They have to be in the bottom of the card case, face down, inside the case, and all I do is close up the case, have the cards with the flap already sort of folded inside the card case, insert the deck into the case, and I'm set to go, okay? At any time I want, I can take these cards out of the case, then sort of open the flap and put the case off to the side, and I'm set. I always emphasize when doing this effect that they are going to do absolutely everything. They shuffle the cards, legitimate shuffle of the cards. I take the cards and as casually as possible insert them back into the case, and they're going to go directly on top of the 3 cards that are already waiting in the card case. I slip them inside, close the case up, put the case on the table, ask the spectator to put their hand on top of the case, and I use the line about them being a human antenna for me so I can get a sense of something that hasn't happened but that will happen soon. I say, watch. Now I just take the pad and I write, I pause a beat, reflect. I write 285 or 582, whatever I feel like. Take the notepad, fold it in half, the page, ball it up and put it on the table or put it in someone's hand. Then I ask them to take the cards out of the case. They do, and naturally, of course, when they take the cards out, without even thinking, they take the 3 cards out that are at the bottom of the case. Boom, they don't think twice about that. Then I ask them to take the cards and cut them in half. They do. I say, hand me either half. If they hand me the upper half, I say fine, and I put those away as if that's what I had in mind the entire time. If, on the other hand, they hand me the bottom half, I say great, and I hand them immediately to them. So either way, I'm sort of magician force onto them the lower half of the deck. Then I ask them to take the cards and to deal them into 3 piles. And as they do, I am sure to emphasize that they shuffle the cards, they cut the cards, they are dealing the cards. They deal them out into the 3 piles, and to finish, I have all 3 turned over, a 5, a 2, and an 8. Then I have someone open my prediction, and they see that I got all 3 numbers correct, the 5, the 2, and the 8. Whether you're performing a voodoo ceremony or burning someone in effigy, both involve catharsis. Borrowed spoon, handkerchief. I ask someone to hold their hands, please, and to hold on to the corners of the handkerchief, and in fact hold the handkerchief behind their back. I say, watch. You've heard of someone being burnt in effigy. Well, this is a little different. A drawing of the spoon. I'm going to try something quite strange with it, the drawing. So strange, in fact, that after the fact you might think I did something, maybe even switch the drawing. So do me a favor and initial, and someone initials the spoon. I say, watch. We're going to try to do something with the spoon that isn't so much about burning, but rather is about bending. Just like that. The spoon has been bent in effigy. Then when they bring around first the handkerchief and open it up, they find the spoon inside has also become bent. Even stranger, though, even stranger, is not only is the spoon bent, but the drawing itself, when examined, is also now bent. Let's start by taking a look at the bend. Now notice this is what I call a concealed or covered bend. I used to do the spoon bend out in the open in the middle of another routine, and what would happen is you take them by surprise, but it's not the sort of thing that creates a huh, it's more of a ha. It's a little bit more of a comedy moment, all right? So, while doing mentalism, I want to get a whole different kind of psychological frame, if you will, all right? Now the bend I'm using is a very traditional technique. The spoon is lying across the hand, and you're going to push down with your left thumb while the forefingers grip the stem firmly. And just by pushing down with the thumb, you're really the key point here is right here at the base of the pinky. Line that up against there, and that'll give you, I guess it's a fulcrum point with which you can then push, and this will readily bend, okay? Now, one of the ways you can warm up your thumb muscle, and I literally will do this, is while driving, I have about a 7-inch length of doweling. Don't make any jokes there. 7-inch length of doweling, and I'll hold a wooden doweling, and I'll just, while driving, I'll just work out the base of my thumb. That way you can keep a nice strong thumb, and anything but the sturdiest of spoons you can then bend pretty easily. All right? Now, I just do the exact same action under cover of both the handkerchief and a larger action. Okay, we're back to the, I'm always quoting it, but it's just such an important idea, Vernon's idea of a larger action covering or concealing a smaller action. So I drape the handkerchief over my hand, pick up the spoon, and give them a moment to really register a mental image of the spoon resting flat inside the handkerchief. Then as I come forward and grab one of the corners near the front between the spoon and the audience, as I come up, I do the bend right through the handkerchief. Gather the corners, hand this to somebody. Now you could have them hold it out front, but when they're looking at it and there's no obvious movement, I think it becomes obvious to them that the bend happened prior to when you're suggesting it did. So I prefer to give this to them and have them hold it behind their back. Okay, so that's the bent spoon taken care of. Second part of the effect is, of course, Gene Gordon's out to lunch, as applied in this case to the shape of a spoon. I have here my stack of my business cards with just already drawn bent spoon, and then fitting neatly over that, of course, is the straight stem part. And you put the rubber band around the whole thing, and this wonderful illusion of boom, just like that, straight spoon. So they're holding the straight spoon, apparently straight, a silver piece of silverware behind their back in a handkerchief. I introduce this, and then I do always tell them I'm going to do something so strange. It's important that they initial the bowl of the spoon, just to keep everything above board. Okay, and they put their initials on it, whatever, and whatever, their initials. Fine. I blow on it, and I use the blowing as a continuing line, just to sort of really sell the illusion of blow once, reach down, pull it out, blow again. Okay. Now, of course, this is the bent one. Now, this you go south with this, put it in your pocket, whatever. I like the fact that I visualize. All too often, mentalism doesn't make visual what's happening. They're appealing to the mind, but it doesn't make it visual. So I like the fact that this moment gives a visual to the idea, and all I'm doing, of course, is holding the business card and then bending at, I guess, about a 45-degree angle, boom, like that. And it nicely conceals the fact, you can drop this on the table now, it conceals the fact that the spoon is in fact bent, right? So that's on the table. I asked them to bring the handkerchief around, have them lower it onto someone's hand or onto a table. They undo the handkerchief and they find the spoon is bent. Now, it's funny because I've done this effect without the visual, and the visual element of it really makes it real for the audience. So that when they open this and they find the spoon bent, this gets, I swear, 50 to maybe 100% better reaction now that I'm using the business card. Even just the bending really adds a lot to it. Makes it, like I said, real for them. So boom, you have that. I wait for that sort of moment of astonishment or sort of freak out to peak. And just as it starts to come down, just as the freak starts to come down, I say, even stranger. Pull it back in, reel them back in. Even stranger. I then open this up, and they see the drawing is also bent. And now people don't know what they want to examine first, either the drawing or the spoon. It sends a real kind of eerie alarm through the entire group. Turn off your brain. Turn it off. I don't want your brain involved in this one, not at all. I'm going to be using a packet of cards, about half a pack of cards actually. Remove this rubber band. We'll get back to it in good time. Now, I'm going to give the cards a bit of a mix-up. And if there was a spectator right here, I would give the cards to the spectator and ask them to take the cards and give them a mix-up if they'd like, as well as cut the cards as many times as they want. They can cut them and cut them and cut them. And the key to this effect, I would say, is do not follow your thoughts. Follow your urges. Go with your gut feeling on this. I would hand them the packet and I'd say, we're going to deal through the cards, and I want you to deal them into two piles, two separate piles. But don't do it evenly. Instead of going 1, 1, 1, 1, mix it up. Give me 1, then maybe give yourself 2, give me 1, give me 2, give me as many as you want, and then a few more back to yourself. So the spectator continues to randomly divide this packet of cards between my hand and the table, or even another spectator's hand, giving 1 here, 2 there. They can go back and forth as many as they want, as long as they give approximately half the cards to the two of us. Isn't that interesting? I mean, you could have, at any point, given me 1 card more or 1 card less, or given yourself 1 card more or 1 card less, but I asked you to follow your gut. What did it feel like? What did it feel like when you made those choices? I mean, why did you give me this card and not the next card? Now, maybe you have your own answers to that, but my answer is I actually think that you were in touch with something on a level sort of different than you do every day. Now, that may be a bit of an outlandish claim, but I want you to see. I was sort of watching what you were doing very carefully, and I got a definite sense of one thing in particular that actually involves a confession. And here's the confession I have to make. I took a marker and I actually drew a black X on the faces of half of these cards. They're ordinary cards apart from the fact that there's a black X on half the cards. Let's take the rubber band off the ones you gave me, and let's slowly go through to see. So there's 1 for you, an X, none for me. And I'm pretty sure that if we go through the entire packets, we'll find that on some gut level, every time you made a choice between giving me 1 or keeping 1 yourself, you made the perfectly right choice every single time. For this one, you're going to need 34 cards. They're all from the same deck. I've got a pile of 24 cards here and a pile of 12 here, but they're all from the same deck, so there are no duplicate cards, all right? These 12 blue back cards are just 12 ordinary cards, a real mixture of cards, okay? These 24 cards, however, all have black X's on them, okay? And there's no special order to any of these cards. We've just got the pile of 24 with X's and 12 without. Put a rubber band around the 12, or the 24, I should say, the 24 with X's. You're also going to need, at some point, to switch these in. And there's a number of different ways you can do it. One way, of course, is in your pocket when you're going to your pocket for the rubber band. But the way I did it here, and the way I would typically do it, is out of my case. So you want these resting in your case, and you want them resting face up, okay? Face up in your case. In this case, we'll use the chair. That's their position. So here you are, ready to perform. Take the packet out. You don't want to flash the X here, of course. You take the packet out, take the rubber band off, draw attention to the rubber band for a second, and then drop it in your case, ideally near the cards. Now notice I'm using an overhand shuffle because I don't want to flash. If I were doing this kind of shuffle, a riffle, in the hand riffle, I could maybe flash the X's, which I don't want to do. So I'll do an overhand shuffle, give the cards a bit of a mix-up, put them on the table, let the spectator give them a few cuts if they want. The more complicated, the better, okay? Having done that, I give them to the spectator and ask them to deal them out back and forth. Of course, the key is for them to be dealing them into your hand. You don't want them just dealing them into two piles on the table. You want some on the table and the rest in your hand because that'll make it much more natural for you to eventually be left holding half the cards. All these cards, of course, have X's on them. Every single one has a big black X on the face. They go back and forth. They determine whether they want to give you two or them one, whatever. Now, while continuing with the presentation, if you have a jacket, both hands go into your pockets looking for the rubber band. But in this case, I'm going to go down to my case. Go down to my case. I grab the rubber band, grab those, come on up like this, leading with the rubber band. I casually put this around. Of course, all this happens while you are presenting. It's important that at this point you're still continuing to sell the impact of the effect. Drop it on the table. Now you want a time lapse too. Not too long of a time lapse, but I would say a good 20, 30 seconds. Having done a time lapse for 20 or 30 seconds, at this point, this is when you're really going to bring the whole effect into a sort of a crystal clear position. Attention goes on, you take the rubber band off, put those on the table, focus attention, have the spectator put his or her cards down the table as well, and you have this wonderful ending where they get to see one by one, and each moment, sort of like a slap in the face, boom, boom, because they did everything. They cut the cards, they dealt the cards, and now they can examine the cards, and they find out that the split between the non-X's and the X's was absolutely perfect. Think of a card. Any card, think of it right now. Now watch me very carefully, okay? And there's not going to be a quiz or something like that later on. I just want you to be able to recap perfectly with me exactly what I did. You're thinking of a card. What is the card you're thinking of? Let's imagine for a moment you're thinking of the Jack of Spades. I say, fine, watch. You'll agree, I think, that you were thinking of a card. I went through the pack, and I took one card out of the deck. Then you saw me openly take that card and slip it inside the card case. Then I finally asked you to name your card, and you named the Jack of Spades. This effect is almost too direct. It's very, very cheeky, but I love it. Watch, watch. You need a card case. The card case should be opened at that point. And you say to them, think of a card. They think of a card. You say, keep it in mind. You say, fine, watch me very carefully. Now, it's important that at the very beginning of the effect, you establish this air of almost legal kind of, we're going to go through the paces and ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. That's very important for the presentation to be credible. And without the presentation, it can't possibly support the method you use, okay? I go through and I stop at a card and I up-jog it. And then I cut the pack exactly at that card. It's key that I perfectly mirror what I'm going to do in a few beats, okay? I take the card out, I slip it face down into the card case with the flap uppermost, close this, turn it 180 degrees and put it down, okay, with the half moon cut uppermost and opposite end for me. I pick up the case, cards, and I look at them in the eye and I say, all right, what's the card you're thinking of? Let's say they say the 5 of diamonds. I smile. I say, okay, okay. And I'm almost trying to contain my excitement. Okay, okay. Now, you remember, I did go through the cards, and as I'm going through, I'm looking for the 5 of diamonds now. I went through the cards like this, and I took one card out. And as I say take one card out, I'm actually taking the card above the 5 of diamonds. The one above the 5 of diamonds, okay? I put this on top. This is a tip actually brought to me by Jason Maloney. Good thinking. He added a lot to this effect. I say, then I took the card, and I show them clearly it's not their card, just in case they're suspicious. I say, then you saw me take the card, I cut the pack, or sort of almost a half charlier here, and I slip it in the middle, as I say, and you saw me slip it into the card case. Then I asked you to name your card, and as I gesture and I asked you to name your card, I transfer the deck from the left hand to the right hand, getting ready for the one hand top palm. As I reach for the card case here, I one hand top palm, boom, the card. Just by pushing down with my pinky, one hand top palm the card, take the card case, put the deck down, come over, leave the palm card on top of the case, turn the card case over, and pop it open. This is a load-on technique I first learned from Marlowe, where you're here, you load it, you turn the cards over, pop open the case, thumb goes in, fingers on bottom, and you pretend to take the card, of course, out of the case with one deft action. Boom, like that. In performance speed, it looks like this. You're here, palm, the card case is turned over, palm off the card, come over, turn the card case over, out comes the card, boom, like that. This routine is very much an example of the presentation and the method being extremely interdependent. I'm now going to try to send 3 thoughts from here to my director. Doug, get ready. Here we go. I'm going to send you a thought. What is this card, Doug?
Ace of Spades.
The Ace of Spades, the death card. Okay, let's try something a little less ambitious this time. Let's go with just the suit this time. Okay, what's the suit of this card?
Diamonds.
Diamonds. Okay. Ace of Spades, diamonds. Let's try something even less ambitious. Just the color. Just the color. Doug, what's the color?
Black.
Black. Ace of Spades, diamond, black. Black, diamond, Ace of Spades. Unfortunately, this one's not 100%. You're always guaranteed to get 2 of the 3 cards correct, but the 3rd card you're not. Because what I'm doing with this is I'm taking a 50-50 chance on the red-black calling, the color they call. Yes, you could include a force in this, and therefore make it 100%, be 1 ahead with a force and everything's fine. But on this particular one, I like the fact that there is no force, that it's totally open-ended. I think that feeling really conveys over to the audience and sort of permeates the whole effect. Shuffle deck. You go through, grab a black card, and you'll see why a black card in a moment. You grab a black card out of the pack, take any one. In this case, we'll take the 5 of Spades out, and say to someone, I'm thinking of this card. What card do you think it is? What card do you think it is? In fact, don't just think, know it. What's the card? And they'll often play along. And let's say they say 3 of clubs. You drop that card on the table. You don't act like you got it or that you missed it. Somewhere in the middle, you go, okay, let's try something a little less ambitious. Okay, so you don't want to give away one way or the other. Now, since they just named the 3 of clubs, I go through, I find the 3 of clubs, and I say, okay, let's take it a step further. Let's go with just a suit this time. And of course, it's the 3 of clubs. They name a suit. Let's say they say diamonds, okay? And I drop that. I go, okay, let's try something even less ambitious. So it's been 3 of clubs, diamond. Now I say finally color. And I go through, of course, till I find a diamond, 1 ahead. And I go, in this case, I guess one behind, and I say, okay, what's the color? Now, if they say black, you're 100% correct, because watch. Drop this on the table. You're going to do a bottom deal. All you need to do to make the order perfect now, and it's all been, you're away from the deck, which is great, is you're going to push off the top card, buckle the bottom card, which is easy. It's a 1-card buckle. Buckle the bottom card, and it looks like I deal the top card onto the table. Watch again. It looks like I deal it, but in fact, I'm doing a bottom deal. The top card is pulled back, the bottom card is pushed out, and I go boom. Black, boom, diamond, pause half a beat, 3 of clubs. Total, bam, 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 super strong. Now, if they say red, you are now 1 card off. If they say red, what I'll do is I'll often deal the first card. In this case, it's the black card. Let me get set up where we're supposed to be. Here we go. I'll deal the first card, and if they say red, I go, so it's boom, boom, boom. I say, now, I actually predicted, I say boom. I say, we were off on this card. You said red, it was actually black, but maybe the back of the card, it's red, maybe that fooled you. So that's why I always go with the black card first, because at least you have some obvious organic line, you know, oh, it's the red back, boom. But then the next 2 cards, which are straight deals, you always get. 6, there's the diamond, and there's the club. So that's, and again, with the bottom deal, and it's just about being 1 ahead, and like I said, you always get 2 correct. Sometimes the very first one, the least impressive one, you miss. And it's the kind of thing I'll do right in the belly of a set. We've all had the absolutely maddening experience of having a piece of information firmly held in our thoughts, and then a second later, for some inexplicable reason, it's gone. It vanishes. These lapses in memory can be extremely frustrating, and we've all had them, as I said, but I'm actually going to try to orchestrate one right now. Now, this does not work all the time, okay? Maybe about 1 in 5 times I try this, it actually comes about. So if this doesn't happen the way I'm hoping it will, we'll try something else, okay? It's just all an experiment. There's something about you, though, that makes me think you're particularly susceptible to memory loss. I'm going to write a few common shapes on the back of this stack of business cards. A few common shapes. Now, this can be one of the most disorienting things I do, okay? This is very, very disorienting. So what I'm going to have you do is actually initial the card. I'm going to have you initial the card I've written the shapes on, and then I'm going to show the same card to everybody else so they can also join in, okay? I want witnesses, I want your initials. We're going to proceed like this, all right? And then what happens after doing that is I ask the spectator to out loud. First I focus, I look at them, and then I go, right now, name the shapes that you remember. And of course, when the spectator names the shapes, one of the shapes that everybody else saw and knows full well is drawn on their signed business card, they cannot name one of the shapes. They, in fact, suffer a memory loss. I absolutely love the performance challenge of this kind of effect. I mean, this tries to raise the bar across the board, okay, of the whole. To what degree can one person intrude or even meddle around inside another person's brain? The premise, very strong, memory loss, everyone can relate, whatever. Now, this is in fact based on an effect that Richard Sanders and I came up with called Thought Thief. This is a very different approach to it. It's much more commercial, much more practical than the original method. But if you're curious, track down a copy of our book, When Creators Collide. And in there you'll find Thought Thief. And it's a pretty interesting little presentation. But let's take a look at the mechanics and the method behind this, and we'll walk through the routining after that. For starters, you're going to be using, as you probably got clued into it, as most magicians who see a kind of a thick rubber band on a stack of business cards, we're going to be using the old out to lunch principle, okay? The old Gene Gordon out to lunch. And I've drawn a triangle, a heart, and a circle on a half card, and then a triangle, a heart, a square, and a circle on a half card. And note the order. Both start with triangle, both have heart, as if they were reading from left to right and down, the way you would a book. It's triangle, heart. Then, notice I don't leave the circle in the same spot and no square there. I actually center the circle. I put the circle in between the other 2 shapes on the second line. All right? You are set to go. Take your large rubber band, your broccoli, undoubtedly, rubber band, put it around the stack, and you're set to go. Okay, now performance-wise, I like to first spend a few minutes or moments at least talking about memory loss and sort of emphasizing this doesn't always work. And second, that there's something about this person, and I pointed someone on my far right, okay? Someone on my far right I think is particularly susceptible to memory loss. Let's try and see what happens. I take the cap off the marker, and you can, and I pretend to draw. Of course, you could leave just a blank business card here and then actually draw the triangle, the circle, the square, but I prefer to have it all set up and pretend to draw a circle, square. Now you don't want it to look like you're drawing 4 or 3. You want to keep it ambiguous, okay? Which is why sometimes it's helpful to draw 1 or 2, then pause, talk to somebody, and say, actually, let's sort of, and build it that way, okay? You don't want to be too specific. Nobody is supposed to know how many there are at this point. Now, this is the key. I say, I'm going to have this can be pretty disorienting, sir, so I need you to actually initial the card. I lean towards him, and you want to make sure that nobody else sees. And you can even say something like it's key that at this point only he's the first to see them. Some presentation line if you think you need it. I find though that I can just by body language isolate this one person and get them, especially if I take it, I show it to them and I say, I want you to concentrate on the shapes you see. So they're seeing this, no one else is. I've got it aimed this way. I want you, and I'll sometimes cheat a little bit. I'll turn the angle of the packet to make sure no one else. Concentrate on those shapes, and I never mention how many shapes. Concentrate on them. Make sure you remember all the shapes they do. Then I say, I want you to initial it, and of course they put their initial like that. They put their initial on it like that. I cap the marker, and I say, fine, thank you very much. I come up. I blow, I pretend to take this, but of course I'm going to be pulling out the one beneath with the 4 shapes on it, right? I blow here, like that, and I ask, so you have a firm image of the shapes in your mind. They say yes. I take the card, I turn it, and I show it to the others. Now what's nice about this is because they can see the initials, they're immediately reassured that there's, in case they thought there was any sleight of hand or any switching going on, obviously there's not. And I say to them, all right, I'd like you guys to also remember the images. Take the images in your mind and firmly hold on to them. Make sure you have a clear memory. Again, I never mention how many there are. Finally, I lower this down to my waist level. I ask the person to hold up their hand. He does, and I say, put it between your 2 hands and hold on to it. Fine. So what's the situation? The situation is that someone is concentrating on some images, and I say, I would now like you to name, and then I say, before you name, I say 1, 2. Now this is interesting. This is very personal presentational style. What gesture conveys the idea that you just caused someone to lose a thought? Do you look them deep in the eyes? Do you snap your fingers? Do you? I like the loudness of a clap, a sudden focus on them, think about them, think about them. The loudness and suddenness of that surely startles everyone. And I say, I'm not sure, but I think I just caused you to forget one of the symbols. And of course everyone goes, that's ridiculous. I say, name the symbols out loud. And of course they name a heart, circle, square, or whatever the 3 you've drawn, heart, circle, and triangle. They go heart, circle, and what's neat is the one they're gonna miss is in the 3rd position. So they go heart, circle, and everyone's thinking, of course, he's gonna name the square now. And he goes triangle. People go, they're looking at their buddy. And I go, well, there were 4. Could you name the 4th one? And of course he goes, no, there were only 3. And now the friends go, come on, what are you doing? It's obviously, and I say, the one he missed was the, and they all say at the same time, he missed the square. And of course he's thinking to himself, this is crazy. And I say, turn it over. And when he opens his hands, turns it over, and sees he's initialed, and there is, it's a perfect mystery. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hey, predicting the future, reading minds, that's all well and good. But what about some free stuff? Where's the free stuff? Okay, watch. Got some envelopes here. To be exact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want you to choose between them, and I promise, whatever you choose, whichever envelope you choose, you get to keep the contents, okay? There'll be no funny word games, no semantics, no trying to psych you out, no trying to overpower you with mind control. Whatever is in the envelope that you choose, you get to keep. I'll mix them up a little bit. So, nothing funny going on. And I want you to choose one. Go ahead. And let's say the spectator chooses, they get a free choice. Let's say they choose this one. I say fine. I started doing this a few years ago because invariably what people would say is they'd say, Jay, if you're such a good psychic, if you predict the future, Could you maybe give me the lottery numbers? Could you give me a hint on the lottery? Or maybe could you name a racehorse or two that's supposed to come in tomorrow at the track? And I've got to be honest, I have found that the intentions behind my attempt to get a sense of future events, the intentions behind that do affect the clarity of my abilities, really, to be able to get a sense of the future. And so what I tried to do is, rather than actually giving away tips that yield money, is I like to do this little thing here. This is sort of an attempt to give people a chance to win some money. And you chose one. You chose one of, overall 5 envelopes. And I said you get to keep whatever is actually in the envelope. Now, if you'd chosen this one, what's in here? Let's see. In here, there's $10. That would have been yours to keep, okay? And if you'd chosen this one, there would have been, $20. $20 in that one. Of course, leaving the last two, if you had chosen this one, there would have been, how much in here? $50. Even better. And finally, if you'd chosen here, you would have got the, looking like bad news for you, I'm sorry to say. You would have got $100 there. I am really sorry the way this worked out, because the one envelope you chose was the only envelope, I'm afraid, in which I keep the penny. But I did say there's some free stuff, so you will get to take this home. And as I said, what's inside you do get to keep. I'm just sorry it didn't work out a little better for you. It's always amazing to me that you can use the same method for something and actually get a totally different effect. In this case, I'm using the same switch, really switching out the majority of the items for another set of items. I'm using the same switch here as I did in the effect homicide. And in both cases, what I try to do is take a pretty simple idea and make it something that people can really relate strongly to. With homicide, it's other human beings and the whole notion of violence. Whereas in this effect, of course, it's money. You need 9 envelopes, 9 pay envelopes, a bulldog clip, bigger the better, nice big bulldog clip. You're also going to need a $100 bill, a $50 bill, a $20 bill, a $10 bill, and 5 pennies. All right? Fold up the bills, slip them inside. And just because I find sometimes when performing for people, my pocket management isn't always absolutely perfect and tidy, I find it worthwhile to put some pencil dots or a little note on the back of the envelopes so I know which is the 10, which is the 20, because I want to make sure that when I reveal them at the end that there's a nice build to them. So I have my 10, my 20, my 50, and my 100. Now, I'm going to use the same switch as I used before. But again, you can do it in your case, or you can do it out of your left pants pocket if you're wearing big pants, roomy pants, or you can even do it probably easier out of your left jacket pocket. These are in your pocket off to the left, or in your case, as I said. You also have 5 envelopes, and there's a penny in each of these envelopes. These 5 envelopes, you clip together with a bulldog clip, and you are ready to go. To start, you come out, and you want the time lapse later on. You also don't want them to get too far ahead and realize that there's money involved. So what I like to say is I come out and I say, I'm going to give you a choice. Whatever you choose is the one you're going to get to keep, and it's key to emphasize they get to keep what's in the envelope. Because later on, when you start pulling $50 and $100 bills out, it's just the drama's lost, unless there is also the belief that if they had only chosen that one, they could have kept it. Okay, so that's essential. Emphasize that point. I come out, I draw attention to the bulldog clip, I pause a beat, sort of use it as a gesturing device while patterning, and then I put that in the pocket. Okay, left pocket, right pocket, whatever's going to facilitate my switch. I put these down on the table, I give them choice, and as usual, I make sure if they choose that one that they can change their mind if they want this one. I let them have lots of opportunity to choose. They're not committed until the very finally they are committed. Then I gather these up. And now I want the air of the performance to shift. I want there to be a shift and for the people to get a sense that, okay, now he's going to tell us what is actually going to go on. He's going to let us in. And I say, well, you know, people ask me, and it's a very credible presentation. People ask me, well, if you can predict the future, maybe you can give me a tip on a lottery or maybe a horse race or something. And while I'm patterning, what I do is I go into my pocket. Now, let's say I put the clip in my right jacket pocket. If I did that and I've got the envelopes in my left jacket pocket, both hands, while I'm talking, both hands casually go into my pockets. In my left pocket, I'll leave the envelopes and come out with the other envelopes at the same time coming out with the clip. And it's about timing those two together. I'll clip these, put them on the table, and at this point in my presentation, I'm normally at the point where I say, so I decided to actually just give money away. I mean, rather than trying to use my gift of being able to see the future, I'd rather just set up a situation where people have a free choice of the possible take-home prizes. And I say in this case, and now see, this is why it's important to do a time lapse, because if I were to reach into my pocket, take the clip out, immediately clip these guys, talk for one sentence, then take the clip off, well, even if not consciously, unconsciously, they're going to know something's up, and they're going to go backtrack, and they might get actually to the method. And the last thing you want them to go to is he had his hands in his pockets, because that wipes it all out. All right, so you need a time lapse. It comes off. Now comes, of course, the final part of the presentation, where because I've got marks on the back, it's easy for me to take out the 10, take out, and my thing all along is I want to try to convey the idea that I'm empathetic, that I kind of wish they had done better, but they hadn't. I take out the 20, take out the 50, finally taking out the 100, boom, boom, boom. All attention draws here. They know all too well by my tone now. They know all too well that I guess they didn't do especially well, and I'm really sorry, but you happen to choose the one envelope in which I keep the penny. And I always give this away, and the danger to this trick, because they do end up on the losing end, is for you to seem controlling or condescending. That's why when I give it, I never go, I really want to emphasize, I'm really sorry it didn't work out well, okay? And I hand that to them, and then I go on to something else, ideally something that's going to make them really look like the star of the next effect. Let us begin by having 3 playing cards selected. Number 1, number 2, number 3. 3 cards, any 3 cards are touched. The fairness is emphasized. I ask the spectator, please hold at your hands. They do. The spectator takes the 3 cards, and I say, I want you to take the cards, and I want you to mix them. Just keep mixing them. So the spectator continues to mix the cards. As the spectator continues, I say, you know, you can tell quite a lot about a person based on what they hide, what they keep, and what they give away. That's right. Hide, keep, give away. You're mixing up those cards. I'd like you to decide which one you want to keep. Without looking at the faces, just on an urge, which one do you want to keep? And let's say the spectator decides to keep one of the cards. Fine. They can put that in their pocket if they want. I say of the remaining 2 cards, I say again, we're down to hide, keep, give away. Of the remaining 2 cards, which of those 2 cards do you in fact want to hide? They hand me one. I take the card and I say, fine, we'll slip that somewhere in the middle of the pack, hidden. And I say, finally, the last one, of course, must be the one you want to give away, which they do. I say, I wrote a prediction down. Would someone please read it? They read it out loud. And first, of course, we find out in this case, the one they gave away was a black queen, the queen of clubs. The one they hid was a red ace. And finally, the one they decide to keep was a red 6. And my prediction reads, you will give away the queen, you will hide the ace, and you will keep the 6. A few months ago, I was in England, and I had the enormous pleasure to meet Andy Nyman. Just a really smart, really sweet, good guy, really knowledgeable guy. And he was at his dealer's booth and showed me a few things. And one effect he showed me, I'm pretty sure was called Watch, Wallet, and Coin, or Coin, Watch, Wallet. I loved it. I really liked I thought, rule of 3, what a perfect mentalist effect. There's a lot of things about it I really liked. However, I wanted something that could be done with an ordinary deck of cards and had a slightly more down-to-earth feel about it. So after a lot of labor, working on a lot of different kinds of equivoque handlings and things, I came up with this. This makes for a lovely opener because it gives you a chance to really interact with the audience. It also is a way to build up steam slowly. It's got the rule of 3. It's not sort of a bam, it's more of a tap, tap, tap kind of way to really set a tone to your show. For it, you're going to need a little piece of note paper with written on it, of course, you will give away the queen, hide the ace, and keep the 6. Okay, so that's my little slip of paper there. Now there is some setup on the deck, okay? It's a 5-card setup, 5-card setup. You've got 3 6s, any 3 6s in any order on the bottom of the pack, okay? You got 3 6s, in this case 6 of spades, hearts, and diamonds, but any 3 6s are on the bottom of the deck, all right? Now on top of the deck, I have an ace, again it can be any ace on top, and a queen, any queen second from the top. This is the kind of setup that you could get into in front of people. It's a 5-card setup. It's pretty casual because it's any 3 6s, any queen, any ace. However, that's a fair bit of finagling, so I prefer to use it as an opening effect, or if I'm going to use it as a closer, because it does have a certain power to it as a closer, I would do a deck switch. All right? Now here's the handling. I go through and I have any 3 cards touched. And of course, we're going to use our beloved Vernon substitute transfer here. Any 3 cards are touched, I make sure they get to change their mind, go back and forth. I emphasize that these 3 cards are going to be the only 3 cards we use in this effect, so make sure you're certain about your choices. While spreading out the cards, I get a left pinky break above the bottom 3 cards just by spreading them out and closing the deck up. Now I'm going to do the Vernon substitute transfer, which we've already explained, but just as I just kick it to one side. All the 3 cards along the bottom are dragged forward beneath those 3 cards. Then I square the deck as I square and say, would you hold at your hands? I square the cards, hold at your hands, and I do the final switching out, taking those 3 cards. Fine. I hand these 3 cards to the spectator. Now, I can, if I want, have them mix the cards behind their back. That, I think, adds a great deal. But sometimes what they do is they turn over the cards by accident, which is not what you want. They've got the 3 6s, one way or the other, whether in front of them or behind them, have them mix them up as much as they want, and then they're going to keep one. Now note, I prefer to have the cards selected before. Having after the cards selected and while they're mixing is when I like to do sort of the presentational, the core presentational part of the effect, mentioning that you can tell a lot by a person based on what they keep, what they give away, and what they hide. Now, while they're mixing up, you're going to do the secret work here. And here's the secret work. I do a riffle pass. I'm going to pass the top card to the bottom of the deck. One gesture, riffle, and it goes. All right? Let me show you that again. Riffle pass. Here, slow motion, I'm going to pull down and reverse that card in the bottom. Now, of course, there's lots of ways to reverse a card. This is just my preferred way. Okay? And again, you pull the card down and around to the side, and you're there. Performance speed, in case anybody's burning your hands, it looks like this. Just riffle the pack, you're done. Very little to see, and ideally you do it on the offbeat while people are focused elsewhere. The second part of the setup, this gives you your ace reversed on the bottom. Second part of the setup is a one-hand, very momentary top palm. Okay, I'm going to palm the queen off the deck. Now you can do a 2-hand palm if you want, bringing the hands together and using the left thumb to push that card off and then taking it into the right-hand palm. Once you've got the card palmed, cut the pack. Cut the pack, then square the cards and leave the queen on top. What this means is you've been able to keep the queen on top the entire time. You've got the ace face up in the middle and you're set to go. Let's say they decide to keep one or they hand you one, whichever, of course, they're all 6s. So whichever one they hand, I turn the deck over. I get a pinky break under the top face up card and I'm going to do Marlowe's tilt, where it looks like whatever card they gave me, I'm going to put in the middle of the deck. Okay? Of course, what I do is I actually poke the back of the deck with the card, out jogging one of the cards. You want to be careful here that you don't, once in a blue moon, hit the already face down card. That's no fun. And then, having hit that one, of course, I then actually slip it into a position second from the top. It's going in second from the top, a la the Marlowe technique. All right? Square the cards up, turn the deck over. Say, fine, that's the card you're hiding. Which card do you want to give away? Again, they hand me one, and they hand me this one. Now, you have to switch this one for the queen. In performance with an audience, when there's lots of natural misdirection, as I gesture towards people, I'll often do a top change. I find top change at this point is nice because it leaves me with the one card not on the deck, but in the right hand free, okay? But in performance, what I did rather than top changing is you can just do double lift. I say, so fine, and I leave that out jogged there, held just on the corner, and I say, so of course that's the one you want to keep. Now, different than when I performed it for here on the tape is I actually have this opened and read first. You'll give away the queen, hide the ace, and keep the 6. And I turn them over in this order. I say, well, you gave this one away, and it was the queen. Okay, now you can clean up if you want, using the KM move, sliding that card off with your fingers, or you can simply pause there. It's not a big deal. There's no heat on this. Okay, boom. Say, so you decide to give away the queen. Now I spread through the cards. And of course, the first card, face-up card I come to is the ace. I don't go all the way to reveal this one down here. I just spread through. It says, hide the ace. And then you have the nice rule of 3 drama. Okay, you leave this out jog there and say, and finally, it says, keep the 6, turn over the one you're holding or the one you slipped in your pocket or whatever. They turn it over and they see they have the 6. you were able to predict what they gave away, what they hid, and what they would eventually keep. Thanks for the inspiration, Andy. Did you know that since 1956, the American government has printed a fresh batch, millions and millions of bills, $1 bills, every 2 years? That means that there are more $1 bills in circulation in the US than any other single bill in any other country in the world. With that in mind, imagine asking to borrow a $1 bill from somebody, turning your head aside, saying, actually, take it out of your wallet, and I want you to fold it in half. They fold it in half. In fact, fold it so that Washington's on the inside. Then fold it in half again, then fold it in quarters, and finally, to make sure it's impossible for me to peek at it, take this paperclip, and they put it on top. Only now do you hold the bill in your obviously empty right hand. I'm going to try to determine which date is on this bill, even though there are millions and millions and millions of $1 bills out there. You ask someone to write this down as you say it. You hand them pen and paper. I see a 1, a 9, an 8, and an 8. Actually, I'm also seeing a 3, an 8, a 4, a 2, and a 9. They then open up the bill, and they see that you were able to divine not just the date, but also the first 5 digits of the serial number. The full view switch strikes again. That's right. This effect uses the same switch I used in the mercurial prediction. And of course, it's the same switch originally from my folded playing card on paperclip. For it, you're going to need a bill, a paperclip, and you're set to go. The rest is it's just that one switch. Now, you do have to memorize 5 numbers or 4, whatever works for you, on a bill. And this is perfectly one of these situations where you may decide to yourself, you're going to deliberately get one of them wrong. There's a lot to be said for that, okay? You may want to deliberately get one of the bills off by a digit, or one of the numbers off by 1 digit, or a whole lot of digits, whatever works for you, I guess, again, your character, your presentation-wise. In this case, I'm using a bill, and I've memorized the 38429, okay, the first 5 digits on the serial number, and I've memorized the date. And once you have that, you fold it up, okay, and you're set to go. And that you're going to need in your pocket, okay, in your left pants pocket. It's folded up. Now, let's start at the very beginning, though, with how I get the spectator to sort of follow my instructions. First, I always emphasize how many bills there are in circulation. That's the key to this effect, okay? Particularly with the date. The psychology on this effect I really quite like, because you go in again, low expectation, and then all of a sudden the expectations, what they receive, go right through the roof, all right? It's sort of, the beginning is almost, it's not a sucker effect. It's not like they're thinking, oh, to get the date's no big deal. But it's not that impressive, which lulls them, of course, and then bam, with the serial number, okay? So, I say, who's got a $1 bill? And as they take it out, I immediately turn my head, okay? I say, actually, I don't want to see the bill. What I'd like you to do is fold it in half. And I always mime. I say, I want you to take it and fold it in half. I find by saying folding it in half precludes people from folding it in half this way, from top to bottom, because I want them to fold it in half from one end to the other. So I always turn my head and I say, just take the bill, fold it in half, and actually with Washington on the inside. Very clear. Fold it in half. The hands, again, add some information that way, visual information. And then by saying Washington, it means the vast majority of the time, with no kerfuffle, no confusion, people fold it in half, okay? Now, whether they fold it this way now or this way, it's negligible. It's not a big deal. I still prefer to say, to guide it, because when I finally take the paperclip off the other bill, I prefer that it looks as similar as possible. So I still, again, use my hands and say, and actually fold it in half one more time, which they do. And again, this gesture, horizontal, usually seems to make sure, turns out they do not go the vertical. And then finally, I say it in half one last time. And now I do go and half one last time. So it's boom, boom, and then I go boom, like that. Okay, so they fold in half one last time. Finally, now it's safe for me to turn. I do turn my head and I say, okay, I think you'd agree now. There's no way I can see the date on your bill. And they do agree there's no way. I reach into my pocket with my right hand and I get the paperclip out. And as, of course, I do that, my left hand comes out at the same time, because I put both hands in the pockets, I come out, and I'm holding the bill I'm going to switch in roughly the finger palm position, okay? I hand this to them, all attention, of course, is on their bill, and I say, would you just put that on top? Now, if they don't seem clear about what's on top, I will take the bill from them and do this sometimes, okay? But again, I really isolate that. That's the key moment. Now I hold it inside my closed fist, and I concentrate. And again, if someone already has a pen and paper out, I ask them to write these numbers down, and I do the 1, the 9, the 9, the 2, or whatever date it is. Now I pause. They think the trick's over. Not insofar as the part about them seeing the date, but they think my attempt at divining is finished. I go, boom, and then I'll pause. I'll go, wait a second. Write this down too. A 2, a 5, a 3, an 8, whatever the 5-digit number I've memorized, boom. At that point, then I open up and I say, and now I'm going to do the switch. And again, the full view switch, luckily, when you're doing the full view switch, whether with a folded card or a bill or whatever, it looks excellent. Okay, it really looks to all the world. Like I've come over, take it out, put it in my pocket. I hand this to somebody, and when they open this apparently borrowed bill, they see the date is right and the serial number is bang on. It's such a wonderful way to end an effect. They get to keep everything and you go on to the next one. This is not an opener. It's too strong. It becomes incredible. It's always a good idea when presenting yourself as a psychic, before trying to get 5 random numbers off a borrowed serial, off a borrowed bill. It's always a good idea to have 1 or 2 other effects that lead up to more and more sort of profound or astonishing divinities, and then finally, this is the kind of thing I'll sometimes close a little psychic performance with. Boom. There's nothing quite so creepy as having your mind read while you're inside a locked room. A package arrives at a man's place of work. The receptionist or his assistant brings it into his office. He opens it up, and inside he finds another package, a manila envelope with something inside. Marked on the envelope, it says, "Do not open this until I call." Later that day, he gets a phone call. It's a gentleman who claims to be, of all things, a psychic. The psychic says, "I hope no one else has touched what's inside the envelope, because I was the last person to touch it, and it's important that you are the next person to touch it." The gentleman rips open the envelope and spills out a pack of cards. He's asked to remove the cards from the case, which he does, and then to put the cards face down on his desk. Oh, and then he's asked, "Are the blinds drawn? Is the door closed?" Yes to both. Cut the cards as many times as you want. Cut them again and again until you're totally satisfied. He does this. He says, cut them one last time to a card, but do not look at the card. Take the top card where you cut and slip it into your pocket. He does this. He says, deal the next 3 cards onto the table and put the rest of the deck aside. Do you have any idea what any of the cards are? Of course, the gentleman has no idea. The psychic says, concentrate on the card in the middle of the 3. Imagine that you know the color. Now imagine that you know the suit. Finally, imagine you know the number. What are you thinking of? The man says, the 3 of clubs. The psychic says, turn it over. He does, and it's not the 3 of clubs. The psychic, of course, then says, it's not as easy as you might think, is it? Which card did you get? The man tells him. He says, okay, turn over either of the remaining 2 cards, either. Concentrate on it, stare at it. The psychic then says, I'm getting a sense of the card. I can see it. It's red. It's a high. It's the 10 of hearts. And the man almost faints. He says, let's try the other card. Don't even turn it over. I think I know that too. I think it's a medium black. It's a 5 of spades. Turn it over. He does. He says, finally, I'm going to try to find a card that neither of us know, and in fact that you've had in your pocket from the very beginning. Take the Queen of Spades out of your pocket. With shaking hands, the man reaches into a pocket and removes the Queen of Spades. Card effects that you can do over the phone have been kicking around for decades. However, one of the things that makes this a little different is that it does not use size 7 setup. Instead, this uses what's known as the identical deck setup. The reason I choose to go with this rather than a size 7s is because the deck is left with the spectator. And I find this is the kind of effect that can be so astonishing to people. They will closely examine and study the pack, and I have, at least on one occasion, had someone, when I used to do stuff with size 7s, actually figure out that there was a pattern in the size 7s. Whereas with a perfectly shuffled pack, the closer they examine it, the more they're convinced it's an ordinary deck with no setup. So, for starters, let's get 2 decks of cards. You have your 2 decks of cards. Take one of the decks and shuffle it. Give it a thorough shuffle, okay? But then go through the cards and try to mix up any of the clusters. Make sure there aren't like 4 or 5 court cards together. Ideally what you want is you want things alternating, so you've got a low card, a high card, then a low card, maybe a medium, then a high. Alternate things up as much as possible with colors, highs and lows, that kind of thing. Again, you will never arrive at a pattern as detectable as a size 7s or any other standard pattern just by going through and mucking around a little bit inside a perfectly shuffled pack, okay? So you don't have to be worried about that. The end result is that you're gonna have 2 decks of cards, because once you shuffle one deck and get it in a certain order, you take your second deck and just mimic the order, put it in the exact same order. So you end up with 2 decks of cards that are perfectly in the same order. Now, grab one of the decks, put it back in the card case, close it up, drop it inside an envelope, and write, "Please do not open this envelope until I call you," and then put your name, Jay or Ed, or whatever your name happens to be. The great brain tumor, whatever works for you, okay? Mail this to somebody or have it ideally courier dropped off inside a larger padded envelope with their name and all that on it. When you give them a call, you're gonna ask them to tear open the envelope, which they will do. Spill out the deck, which they will do. And you, of course, have your deck at home, ready, spread out on your desk or wherever your phone happens to be, and you are set to do this totally just astonishing, eerie trick. Call them up. Have them, ask them to make sure, and do emphasize that no one else has touched the cards, right? No one else has touched the cards? Good, okay. Rip open the envelope or take out the cards, they do. Take out the deck and ask them to take the cards and put them face down on their desk or whatever surface is nearby and give the cards several cuts, which they do. Now, of course, as with any setup deck, they can cut the cards for 100 years and it'll never really alter the order of the entire deck itself, right? Having done that, ask them to say, okay, are you satisfied the cards are mixed up? They say yes. Say, cut the cards one more time. And as they do, complete the cut. Then the last cut, in fact, I often will say, use your left hand. It's the more intuitive hand for this last cutting of the cards. They cut, complete the cut, ask them to take whatever card they've cut to and slip it underneath them or in a desk drawer or in their pocket without looking at it, okay? Now, doing this sort of stuff over the phone, you just have to try it once, and it really has a really eerie quality to it, really powerful. So fine, he's sitting on a card. Say, take the next, now with your left hand again, deal the next card on the table, which they do, and deal the next card to the left of the first card and the next card to the right of it and push the deck aside. Fine, they've got 3 cards on the table. Now, I really love this idea. This is something actually that Jason Maloney helped me with, which was getting the spectator to give you the clue of the first card. Have them concentrate on the middle card, try to imagine the color, the suit, all these things, and then finally say, they guess it. Essentially, they say it's the 10 of diamonds. Say, turn it over. How'd you do? And they say, not so well. Which card was the 5 of hearts? Well, at least you got the color right. That's not so bad. Let's take it a step further. Now, at this point, I know everything I need to know. I go to my 5 of hearts, which in fact happens to be on the bottom of my deck. I know the card above the 5 is the card he's seated on, in this case, the Queen of Diamonds. Boom, so I got that, I know that. I also know that these 2 cards to the left and right are the cards below the 5. At this point, though, I don't know the order. I'm not sure of the order, because the card to the left and card to the right. Because what I'm going to do is say to them, turn over either card. You could say, turn over the card on the left or turn over the card on the right, but I'd rather give them a real sense of freedom at this point in the effect. To me, that's very important, okay? So I say, turn over one of them, which they do. Now when they turn it over, because I know the two cards that are below my card, the 5 of hearts, are the 3 and the 2 of spades, I know the card they just turned over is either the 3 or the 2. So what I'll do is I'll say, I'm getting a sense that it's a black card, isn't it? And they say, yes. I say, I think it's a spade, isn't it? And they say, yes. I say, finally, I think it's a low spade, but it's not the lowest. It's a little higher than that, isn't it? And if they say no, then I know it's the 2. And I go, okay, I think it's the 2. And to me, to have a pseudo miss here sets me up perfectly for the next card. Nice building. If on the other hand I get it, they go, yes. I go, it's the 3 of spades, right? And they go, yes. I say, turn over the next card, which they do. And as soon as they turn it over, I act like I'm right behind their eyes. And I would say, in this case, I'd say, whoa, I'm getting a strong sense that it's very close to the other card. Is that right? They go, yes. I say, it's the 2 of spades. Then finally you have the line I like, which is, now let's go to a card that I don't know, you don't know, and in fact, you took off the table a long time ago. I'm getting a sense of the card underneath you. It's red, it's a diamond. Take the Queen of Diamonds out, and they do. And when they turn over that card, I can't tell you how many times I've actually heard like this little sound. It's wild that when someone responds to something, when no one's watching, they're alone. When you get a response from them, from a person who's alone in a room just on a phone, it's a very different kind of response than any other kind of response you'll ever get performing for people live.